Have you ever had a game mean so much to you that it's become your absolute favourite game of all time, entirely uncontested, yet you believe you can't put it into enough meaningful words to explain why that's the case? Because you think it's deserving of nothing but the highest praise possible? For me, that game is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's a game that means so much to me that I've gone on record stating that if I ever review it, that video will be my last because I simply wouldn't be able to top it. I have since gone back on that statement somewhat, since saying how a review of the entire Klaus saga would be my final video, but either way, just to put that into perspective. However, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has not always been my favourite game of all time. I mean, until late 2018, early 2019, I hadn't even played it, so I wasn't aware of what peak entertainment truly looked like. So, with that in mind, what was my favourite game of all time before then? Or rather, did I even have a game that I could safely put atop that pedestal? The answer to that is yes. Anyone who can read between the lines or has even a lick of common sense or might even be an OG in the channel can figure out what game I'm probably not so subtly alluding to, especially given what you're looking at in the background while I'm talking. That game was Overwatch. I have talked about Overwatch and featured Overwatch on this channel in a very meaningful capacity over the years. Honestly, I wouldn't blame any newcomer to the channel for thinking I'm primarily an Overwatch based one, considering how many videos there are of it, making up a sizable chunk of the total videos here. But the mention of Overwatch comes with a bit of an asterisk. I have a feeling this video will be a long one. I pray to my future self this one won't be as long as my Pokemon Black and White 2 review from last December. If it does turn out to be that way, however, or even longer, allow me to apologise to you ahead of time. This video is going to definitely get great use out of my doctorate in yapology, so I'm just going to pray to my future self that editing will be somewhat convenient. So, prepare yourself, I have feelings and opinions to bestow upon you. I want to preface by saying all my gameplay in this horrifyingly long video on Overwatch 2 is on PC. I played on Xbox until around February 2023 when my good friend Nikita then bought me a PC. I still have yet to pay him back, but you gotta understand, I haven't had a prime opportunity to be under the table yet.
What did he say?
In all seriousness, it's something I'm still immensely thankful for, and I thought it was important to let you know, as the last review just a lengthy look at Overwatch I did was on console. PC may be a whole different ballpark in terms of skill, but overall, there aren't any huge differences between console Overwatch 2 and PC Overwatch 2. By this point, Overwatch needs no introduction, both in general and on this channel, but for the sake of those living under the most spacious rocks in existence, I think it's only wise to give a briefing. Overwatch is a hero-based shooter originally released on May 24, 2016. If you don't understand the term hero shooter, it's a shooter-style game similar to the likes of other FPS games, such as Call of Duty, but with focus on a diverse cast of characters, or having abilities unique to them, typically designed around a class system of gameplay, e.g. the tank class, with their point of existence being to soak up all the damage from enemy players so their teammates can have an easy time surviving and eliminating the enemy. We will get to that. And you know, when Overwatch first released, it took the gaming world by storm. It was truly like nothing anyone had ever seen, with an extremely colourful cast of characters and its incredibly fun hero-based gameplay. And just those early years, man. Hey, what's wrong? Just thinking about the way things used to be. Do you want to go back? Huh? Do you want to go back to how things used to be? Well, of course, why wouldn't... But, actually given a chance, would you? Well, I don't know. But these days, people aren't talking about Overwatch. They're talking about Overwatch 2 because the original Overwatch doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, so some context first. On November 1st, 2019, at Blizzard's BlizzCon event, Overwatch 2 was announced, the long-awaited sequel to the formerly culturally significant hit Overwatch, but with what was going to be a focus on the story and lore of Overwatch playing out in PvE missions, and with other cool stuff like hero skill trees and so much more. After all, if there was one thing a lot of people loved about Overwatch, it was its character-centric lore. So to hear we'd be getting an actual story in said universe, something many kind of expected to see all the way back when Overwatch 1 first released in 2016, it was a dream come true pretty much. However, here we are in the year 2024, That game doesn't exist. Remnants of it do, but not what was originally expected from the sequel. It can only be speculated on what happens between the announcement and Overwatch 2's eventual release on October 4th, 2022. Still though, if we are going to point fingers, I blame Activision Blizzard highlights for pulling the rug out from the dev team. There's been too many cases of pursuits inconveniencing the development team, Team 4, over the years, and so to clarify, other than the actual gameplay, just balancing stuff, my criticisms are absolutely not aimed at the dev team. They've been put through a lot of crap in recent years by people who just believe it's solely their fault for a lot of decisions surrounding Overwatch 2. Plenty I will get into, but they are not the ones responsible. Honestly, you'd be surprised how little power the actual development teams for video games get a say in things, but unfortunately, that's just how things are. Hell, how many times this happens in the industry in general is insane. Like, God forbid the game doesn't sell 20 quintillion copies within the first weekend, which leads to projects getting cancelled. Activision, you bastards! Crash Bandicoot 4 is the best-selling game in the franchise. You still cancel Crash 5? Oh, right, of course. It's because it didn't outsell GTA 5 in the first weekend. Right. Every day I hate Activision Blizzard a little bit more. A statement I'm sure holds strong with Blizzard's Golden Age fans. Sorry about that, but again, to clarify, I have a huge amount of respect for what the Overwatch 2 dev team, Team 4, are doing, and a lot of things we will be discussing from here on out is not at all their fault. So anyway, yeah, Overwatch 2 is what we have today, keeping the core PvP gameplay from the first, but along with a few changes, most notably going from a 6v6 player format to a 5v5 player format. That change affecting the tank run most significantly, meaning now only one tank is present on either side in normal role queue. To say this change has opinions around it would be one hell of an understatement, but one step at a time here. There was also the addition of microtransactions and... Okay, so technically this isn't nothing new to Overwatch. Overwatch 1 had these things known as loot boxes. The mention of such a vile word sent shivers down my spine recalling the state of the gaming scene around that time. And these can be bought with real money, with a different amount of loot boxes available at different prices. We all know how microtransactions unfortunately work by this point. Nevertheless, when Overwatch 2 released, it got rid of loot boxes entirely. But wait! What they implemented instead is arguably worse. Damn it! See, now there was a new in-game currency, Overwatch coins. These weren't the same as the previous in-game currency from Overwatch 1, Overwatch credits, which by the way weren't even in Overwatch 2 until Season 3 of the game. Instead, the coins were another tier of currency, I guess you could say like silver or gold in certain mobile games. This currency debuted alongside the new shop tab that offers cosmetic pieces, skins, emotes, sprays and the likes on a daily rotation. Comparatively speaking, 100 Overwatch coins is about $1 or something. I don't know, the value of money is a hellish concept to discuss, but, oh boy. Right, for some fair context, Overwatch 2, unlike how 1 was, is free. Yeah, I kinda want to think about how Overwatch 1 wasn't free considering the presence of microtransactions, but hey, it was what it was, and this is what it is. So anyway, with Overwatch 2 being free and live service now, a type of game that's supposed to keep players playing for as long as possible through frequent updates and such, and devs, or Blizzard I guess, gotta keep the lights on somehow, and so the Overwatch coins were created, which can be purchased from the shop or previously through challenges, or now through the Battle Pass, another thing Overwatch 2 implemented. As to be expected with any type of purchasable currency, it comes in different amounts and for different prices. The standard affair, though I'm not a fan of that. An argument can be made for the Overwatch coins being present, in that with how the new skins are mainly purchasable with this currency, it gives more incentive for better designed skins, and you know what, yeah I could agree. I won't lie, since the transition to Overwatch 2, there have been some super cool skins available in the shop, but they're not accessible to everyone, either being broke or straight up refusing to spend money on a game. That's me, I am both of those. And I get, sure, can have a good black market, I mean, seeing players for these skins in game, some of which you may not own, brings a sense of individuality, but like, I don't know man. Even though I kinda dislike the loot boxes, there was some sort of magic to getting a skin you really wanted from the current event or whatever. Though, I guess that's more the predatory feedback loop of loot boxes as a concept speaking, but whatever. The new currency is a thing, whatever, and to be fair, there are a few things you can still buy with Overwatch credits, typically legacy items from the previous game, but there was the anniversary event last year, in 2023, that put up several skins previously sold for Overwatch coins, then being available to buy with credits, so that was neat, and I'm really hoping they do that again this year. Now, 4 paragraphs ago, or something or other, I mentioned something else that would probably send a shiver down people's spines, the Battle Pass. Battle Passes are standard in gaming nowadays. Level up to earn rewards, there are free and paid tiers, and there's a new one with every season, usually about 2 months for Overwatch 2. They certainly don't need any introductions, but they're a thing now for Overwatch and have been since 2's release back on October 4th, 2022. They also offer extra rewards after reaching tier 80, these being player titles, which are pure bragging rights, if anything, to say, yeah, I grinded out until level 200 to get this awesome little title. Wow, that sounds really sad now that I'm saying it out loud. Generally speaking, I don't have a problem with battle passes, especially with how certain examples of the battle pass, like in Fortnite, are actually well done. But I had a problem with Overwatch's version of battle pass up until about season 10 of the game, starting on April 16, 2024, ending on June 20th. To use Fortnite as the example again, you have the option to buy the battle pass outright or use in-game currency, V-Bucks, to buy it instead. But you'll be able to earn back what you spent on the battle pass and then some by progressing through it. But Overwatch 2? Nope. You couldn't do that until Season 10, baby. While you can buy it outright or use Overwatch coins, you're buying it outright most of the time. Sure, you could have earned coins through the weekly challenges, but a measly 60 a week. This was the case for 9 seasons until they finally decided to add coins to the Battle Pass. But it takes 2 seasons to buy a single pass, because each one is 1,000 coins and you're only earning 600 from the pass itself. At least on the free tier of the pass, I guess, so there's something. Look, they had the ideal blueprint for a Battle Pass in front of them with Fortnite, and yet, man. In all fairness, the Battle Passes aren't too bad. They've at least given us the Mythic skins, a new rarity of hero skins that have unlockable customizations through the pass, which are very high up there in terms of quality. Well, some of them anyway, and for me anyway, determines whether I feel that season's Battle Pass is worth it or not. Okay, I realise that's probably the case for a lot of people, no matter the game when it comes to the rewards, but sometimes they're good enough to carry the entire pass, in my opinion. Take Season 5's Mythic skin for Tracer, for example. I love this skin nowadays. I wasn't a huge fan of it at first, mostly because I don't really play Tracer much, the hero in question also often being a deciding factor in the pass's value, IMO, but I've come to love it over time. It's just a shame I can't get it anymore though, because it was tied to Season 5. That's where the Mythic Prism's going. Yet another form of in-game currency. These are exclusively used to purchase Mythic skins, hero or weapon ones, and thank the Overwatch gods that these are earnable through the Battle Pass, cause you look at that, and you may not immediately see any issue with it, go off I guess, but a full Mythic skin set is 80 prisms. Yeah, bit much don't you think? And sure, you don't have to have the full Mythic set, but that thinking is very much on the fence in a variety, and I implore you to get off that fence, because no matter how you look at it, these prices are absurd. It doesn't affect me because I refuse to spend money on this game besides battle passes, I get that, but how many times can we ignore the snowball before it causes an avalanche? All negatives aside, for now, the Mythic skins are super cool. Some of them are better than others, granted, like what happened with Season 7's and Season 8's Mythics, Hunter and Aristus respectively. For whatever reason, these two just have fewer customization options than the other Mythic skins, and Aristus especially is just kind of the definition of meh, in my opinion. Honestly, it just looks way too similar to her already existing skins, the Dynastine and Megasoma ones, to be exact. And Hanzo, well, I don't even play Hanzo, and even I feel betrayed by this one. I mean, it looks cool in blue, but that's kind of about it. As for the ones I do like though, first, Genji's Cyber Demon skin from Season 1 starting October 4th is so damn cool. Genji always gets amazing skins, so it makes sense for him to have been the hero to introduce the idea of the new Mythic skin rarity, and with one that, even to this day, is up there with the best Mythic skins honestly. There are people that believe that Mythic Genji may have been too strong of a start for the Mythics, with them thinking the future Mythics haven't reached the same heights, but I think they are wrong. I actually don't own this Cyber Demon skin though, because I was a little salty over Overwatch 1 shutting down, so I didn't buy the Season 1 pass. Karma in hindsight, I guess, but I do have the option to buy it using Mythic Prisms that I will only ever obtain from the Battle Pass, so, you know. Second, Jug Queen's Zeus Mythic from Season 2. Fun fact, after this video, Jug Queen and the next hero, Kiriko, are the only 2 new heroes to Overwatch 2 to have gotten the Mythic skin, the rest being from the Legacy heroes from Overwatch 1. But yeah, this one's awesome. Just look at those abs, I mean, look at that cool lightning effect that goes off whenever you hit anyone with her abilities. Yeah. Third, Kiriko's Amaterasu Mythic from Season 3. This one has always been a personal favourite of mine, super high up there, honestly. Maybe even my absolute favourite, if only for the lore video I did surrounding the goddess Amaterasu in Japanese mythology. You should go watch it if you haven't. It's easily one of my favourite videos I've ever made, please go watch it, please. Besides that though, the skin is a great looking one. The definitive best customization option for it being the one you can see here on screen right now. Fourth, Sigma's Galactic Emperor Mythic from Season 4. This was just... oh, it's so cool! I love this one so much. Of course, as a Sigma connoisseur, I might be a little biased, but forget that, it's space themed, space pirate themed, damn it, and that's cool. And it just looks sick, dude, like, look at it! Look at it! Fifth, well, I've already said my piece on Tracer's Adventurer Mythic from Season 5, so instead, skipping right the way to Season 10 with Mercy's Vengeance Mythic. I'm a Mercy main, as you can see here. Ha! You'll never take that away from me, Callum! Ah, Anyway, of course I was going to love this dark up version of Mercy from an alternate universe. Speaks for itself really, but yeah, this one's awesome, having incredibly satisfying colour choices referencing the three main, I guess evil organisations in the Overwatch lore: Talon, Null Sector and Vishkar. That's super neat. And the final one for now, Season 12 gave us Anubis Reaper. Well, I do think it's a genuinely awesome skin, and I love that Reaper continues to swim in peak skins, except maybe this one. I think this one should have gone to a matchup for lore reasons, being that Anubis was the god program that started the whole uprising thing, leading to the major organisation, Null Sector, to be created by the matcher. However, I know the devs justified this decision, saying how Anubis is the Egyptian god of death, and that's kind of Reaper's whole thing, defying death and all, but if you think about it, Reaper defying death means he's anti-death, right? And last I checked, Anubis isn't the Egyptian god of life, that's Osiris. So, granted, I know Anubis' role is more to help the deceased cross over to the afterlife, which I guess Reaper does if you want to get technical, but shut up. I am a fan of the skin regardless, but the choice of hero is strange. In fact, even then, why didn't even the Egyptian heroes get the Egyptian themed skin? I know Anna already got hers, I'll get to that one in a moment, but it's still Farah, so... Farah even has an Anubis-like skin, Jackal, so like... If you're doing the math, I like just over half the currently available Mythic skins. Now that's not to say Anna's A7000 Wargod Mythic from Season 6, Invasion, the first season to be accompanied by a towel, isn't bad, it's just... it could have been so much better? I mean, for Aurora's sake, a legendary Nighthawk skin from the Season 8 Call of the Hun Battle Pass is so much better than an actual Mythic, I've already spoken about Mythic Orisa and Mythic Hanzo, so there's no need to cover them. But then there's the Season 9 Champions Mythic for Moira, and the Season 11 Super Mega Ultra Watch Mythic for Ashe, both of which are just kind of alright in my eyes. I will admit, I like the Ashe one just a little more for the fact that it seems to be a reference to the iconic Power Rangers villain, Rita Repulsa, who is the definition of quirky Saturday morning TV show villain, so we stand for that at the very least. Overall though, the Mythics are such a fun new idea to generate hype around new seasons, much needed in a lot of cases if it's an off-season, so to speak, aka one without a new hero. If there is one thing I would change about the skins, I'd add even more customization to make them feel more special. You're probably asking, don't they have enough customization already? Well, yeah, some of them, anyway, but what I mean is, allow us to mix and match the colour options. Like, take the most recent example of a Mythic, Anubis Reaper. Maybe you can mix and match with the white and blue option for the hero model, and then go for the red and black option for weapons. Plus, you can have the green Spectral Essence, I think that's what this is, instead of the other two. I'm not a huge fan of how the green looks, to be fair, but maybe someone else might, you know? Now, before the exciting stuff, aka the new heroes, I think it's important to go over a few other things Overwatch 2 brought with it, starting with the new game modes. Sorry to blue-ball you like that, but I am also blue-balling myself too, TBH, so yeah. First, actually, I want to mention that all the heroes from Overwatch 1 were redesigned for Overwatch 2. See, in the story, there was a 2-year time skip between the events, per se, of Overwatch 1 and 2, so the design team wanted to reflect that the heroes looking a little different. Of course, all the heroes kept what made them recognisable and stuck with the silhouette theory that the design team used when designing new skins for said heroes. Even then though, some of them are still just as good. I've seen the opinions surrounding the Overwatch 2 hero designs somewhat shift recently, which I believe is an opinion solely rooted in nostalgia, but in all fairness, the original Overwatch base skin designs are arguably iconic nowadays, so I can understand the sentiment to some extent. But if I'm being honest, none of them are bad. Some are better than others, sure, but none of the redesigns are what I'd call an offence to the original. A few of my favourites include Mercy's redesign because, of course, Reaper's because it's both simplistic and clean, Bastion's because of the cute little hat, Reinhardt's because of his magnificent beard now on show, and Echo's because... wait a minute.
Why doesn't Echo have an Overwatch 2 skin?
Ah! Overall, they're just nice to have, and honestly, seeing the designs slowly get revealed until the release of Overwatch 2 generated a lot of hype for me, and was just a nice, easy way of making Overwatch 2 feel fresh beyond the actual gameplay changes that were made, I mean. A number of the heroes also got reworked, while others got simple balance changes, and every role now got what's called a role passive. A role-wide passive basically like reduced knockback for tanks. As for the reworks, the most notable one was Doomfist having a whole role change, now being a tank, but others included the likes of Bastion, Sombra and Orisa, with her now being an unstoppable raid boss most of the time.
He's mine!
Make her do more than 5 damage per minute and we're all good. I was kidding! Man, that really came to bite me in the ass, huh? Moving on to game modes, in the 6 years Overwatch 1 was aligned, there were only 4 types of game modes: Control, Escort, Hybrid and Assault, When Overwatch 2 was released, it got rid of the assault mode in normal play and replaced it with a brand new push game mode, where you have to push the spot further than the enemy team has done by the end, or be the first to push it to their spawn. The mode started out with 3 maps in Season 1, Colosseo, New Queen Street and Esperanza, and Retrospective much later in Season 11. On the one hand, we don't have to put up with the worst game mode anymore that either lasted forever or was over in less than a minute, but on the other hand, we now have an equally poo-poo replacement that oftentimes goes on forever, usually ends up in a last minute turnaround because of some mistake one guy made and having to win up to 3 team fights just to get the bot back to where it was before the enemy team pretty much capped. That can go either way. As you can tell, I'm not a big fan of push. Would I take it over assault though? Maybe. I guess a whole lot of trauma from certain 2CP experiences live rent free in my head, enough for me to prefer what may objectively be a worse mode, but my personal experiences don't speak for everyone, so, you know, just my humble opinion, I guess. I guess I like the idea of a slightly more back and forth game mode, which I guess that's all of them to some extent. Okay, yeah, that point's been renewed. But I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. The type where there were hope spots, but I feel like it's not fully realised? I don't know, but the point is, I almost always have a bad experience on push, much like how I did with assault. A fitting replacement, I guess. After a little while having to put up with the new game mode, in Season 6, which began on August 10th, 2023, we got another new game mode in Flashpoint, and it might be worse? Another personal situation, so let me explain. Flashpoint brought with it 2 maps, Cervassa and New Junk City. And let me just put this out there, f*** New Junk City! Right, so my apologies for that. New Junk City just sucks, alright? Why? Well, here's where that personal situation comes into play. I always lose on it. Okay, well not all the time, but a large majority of times. Yeah, it might seem a little petty, but it's just how it is. I swear, out of every map that exists and will exist in this game, my worst win rate will be on New Junk City. For real though, I've always been curious about my map win rates. I would love to see that be a thing someday. Though maybe not, since New Junk City would obviously be included in that. That's probably like a 6% win rate or something. New Junk City. Me and the homies hate New Junk City. I'm not kidding about that, by the way. The friend group I play Overwatch with, which is only 2 other people, but shut up, all hate New Junk City. And even seeing it always gets a visceral reaction out of us, because we just know we're gonna lose. I guess with that mentality, that's why we do lose on it so much, but in all fairness, wins on it do feel more satisfying. Or maybe that's just because we didn't lose on it again. My hate for New Junk City equals the collective hatred of the entire assault mode. Oh right, for sure, that's a Flashpoint map too. It's alright with me. And finally, introduced in Season 12, but first on a playtest in Season 10, the newest game mode, Clash. Thinking about it, that joke doesn't really work because I'm not a Call of Duty guy at all, so the whole thing about me confusing it falls flat. Hell, I didn't even know the game mode existed in COD until Nova told me about it. Man. Nevertheless, Clash is essentially Flashpoint, but with more points to take. Okay, that's not entirely true to be fair, no. Instead, you either take control of 5 points, first to 5 basically, or work your way up to take the point closer to the enemy spawn, where each third counts towards your score. Points are labelled from A to E, with point C being the first one either team must capture to start making progress. Like Flashpoint, only 2 maps are available for this mode so far, Hanaoka and Fred Anubis. And you know what? I actually kinda like this one. I feel like it's the perfect amount of back and forth that can make a game feel exciting, with things in place to, usually, prevent a complete stomp of either team. Like how subsequent points get closer to the spawn point if you're being pushed, allowing you an easy time of fighting back, while the opposite is an effect for the attackers with their spawn getting further away. I also like the idea of reworking the old assault maps for this mode, like how Hanaoka is very clearly inspired by Hanamura and Throne Anubis is inspired by Temple of Anubis. It's really neat, honestly. But I'm kind of already bored of this mode. See, for some reason, as of the start of Season 12, the Clash game mode is extremely common in normal play. Quick play, comp, etc, what have you. This is what happened with Push when that first came out at the start of Overwatch 2, and just like Push at the time, I think Clash is leaving a sour taste in people's mouths because of how frequently it's appearing. Don't get me wrong, that's not me saying either the maps or the game mode itself is bad. It's just a case of me thinking it's way out its welcome with how often I have to play it. You know what they say about variety being the spice of life and all? To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if I played Clash 100 times already. I know that's hyperbolic, but I wouldn't be surprised if I wasn't that far off from my assertion. Despite that, overall, I do like Clash, though a lot of games can resort to taking point C, conceding point B, and then moving back to point C because it's just easier. So a lot of the time, you're not moving past the centre of the map, which is a real shame because these maps are tremendously designed, both in terms of looks and feel. If you were to ask me how to improve the mode, it's really as simple as having a couple more maps to avoid repetitiveness. Looking at you, Flashpoint. Hey, that's not jumping at the depths. I know for a fact that they're always trying their hardest, especially with everything that can get thrown their way like mass layouts or sudden changes in direction from the higher ups. It's just a case of me wanting more simply because of personal issues that do not matter in the grand scheme of things. It can also maybe tweak how frequently the mode appears too. Okay, thanks, bye. Alright, so now I want to go through the new additions to Overwatch 2 that come with each season, including new game modes, new maps and features, and while I will mention new heroes, I won't quite go into detail about them. That's for much later on. Also, for the sake of clarity on the event side, while all the annual events from Overwatch 1 return, such as the Halloween Terror, Winter Wonderland, New Lunar Year, Summer Games and Overwatch Anniversary events, along with their exclusive game modes too, I won't be talking about them in detail unless they had a new game mode with them or brought anything else new with them when they rolled around. This is going to take a while, so bear with me until we get to the truly exciting stuff. I beg you, it's a lot. Starting with Season 1, which ran from October 4th, 2022 to December 6th, 2022, we had Soldier, Jug Queen and Kiriko as the new heroes, damage, tank and support respectively, and we got the Cyber Demon Mythic for Genji. Season 1 is the only season so far to add more than one hero in a single season, but that's most likely because they had been working on these for a while before launch and wanted Overwatch 2 to start with a bang. We also got 6 brand new maps. The previously mentioned Coliseo, New Queen Street and Esperanza for the new push game mode, Circle Royale for the escort mode, and Midtown and Palacio for the hybrid mode, which, fun fact, I keep forgetting that Palacio is a hybrid map. I don't know why, but I never seem to clock it as such. Out of all these, my favourite has to be Circle Royale, the escort map, if only for how pretty it looks in the night variant. Shadow maybe, but I can barely swim. The first new event game mode for Overwatch 2 was Junkenstein's Revenge, The Wrath of the Bride for the Halloween Terror 2022 event and future ones. This one has you complete various objectives in different parts of the Atlasbrunn map, Icon Road with Spooky, that the base Junkenstein's Revenge mode also took place on, but that was limited to only one area. Along the way you can fight different bosses including Banshee Moira, Gargo, Winston, Marionette Echo, Summoner Symmetra, the only one we used from the base mode, and one Bastion the Experiment for some reason. This one doesn't make too much sense to me. There's also Sigma, the Unstoppable Ghost, who is the only boss that can't be killed and serves more as a constant hazard to avoid, locking onto individual players at a time. I will admit, it's kind of fun. Not as addicting as endless Junkensteins or anything, but it was nice to finally have something different after like 6 years of saying game modes every time an event came around. It's also fun because it lets you play as the 3 brand new heroes at the time, to Overwatch 2, Sojourn, Jug Queen and Kiriko. And Ashe, but whatever. I remember around the time this game mode first released, I was kind of down on it and Overwatch as a whole, which you can find in the VOD on my VOD channel, but opinions can change and yeah, you know, I was still sorting the time from Overwatch 1, so fill in the blanks. In Season 2, which ran from December 6th, 2022 to February 7th, 2023, we got a new tank hero, Remacha, and a new escort map, the Shambali Monastery, as well as a Zeus Mythic for Jungle Queen. As for events, the Winter Wonderland returned with no new game modes. A nostalgic event for me, but one that blows in terms of game modes. I'm sorry, I don't like any of the 3 here. And that goes for the Lunar New Year event too, but worse so because I don't feel anything for that event. 2022's version of Winter Wonderland I have beef with in particular because there was an offer in the shop to buy the Gingerbread Bastion for just 1 Overwatch coin, and I have regretted that decision ever since. Just give me back my 1 coin, please! Getting back on topic, in between the Winter Wonderland and Lunar New Year, Year of the Rabbit was actually an entirely new event, Battle for Olympus. Tying in with the theme of Season 2's Battle Pass, Greek Mythology, Battle for Olympus is a deathmatch type mode featuring heroes with their respective Greek mythology skin fighting out with powered up abilities, namely their ultimates, and let me just say, so far, this event has been the most fun I've had with any exclusive game modes in Overwatch 2. Granted, that's not to say all the other event game modes were bad, I just had way too much fun with this one. I know I did a stream highlights around this time where I seemed to be suffering more than anything, but afterwards, I locked the f*** in and had an absolute blast with it. Seriously, some of these ultimates were so fun to utilise. Like when Jungle Queen ult every subsequent attack from her for a limited time will summon a lightning strike from the sky to do extra damage. There were challenges associated with this event, yielding decent rewards, the first being a player title for the respective heroes, so long as you could get at least 300 final blows with them. A final blow meaning you have to be the last hit on an opponent. You can tell you've done this when you appear in the kill feeds with the eliminated opponent. Out of all of them, I went for both Jungle Queen's related ones, Zeus's favourite shard, and Remacha's, the new hero this season, Pride of Poseidon. I repped the Pride of Poseidon for a long time until late Season 10, so yeah, still a lot of fun overall. I wish it would come back, but I think these game modes are exclusive to certain seasons, unless they were already a part of an event like the Summer Games ones. But Battle for Olympus has returned, to be fair, which we will get to. There was an even bigger reward by the end of the event too. Throughout the event, there was a leaderboard periodically posted to Twitter, I'm not calling it X, showing the heroes with the total number of elims across all players, and Whichever hero was on top by the end would get a statue dedicated to them on the Ilios map. The winner ended up being Jungle Queen, but it's not like that was a surprise because Queen was straight up just the most powerful one there. Balancing amongst the heroes in this mode was wildly inconsistent throughout anyway, but Queen was on a whole different level. I suppose it is fitting given Zeus Jungle Queen was the mythic last season and any other hero like Medusa Widowmaker would have seemed odd, but either way, whatever. But overall, a super fun mode. Moving on to Season 3 now, which ran from February 7th to April 11th, 2023, we got a new map, Antarctic Peninsula for the Control game mode, and the Amaterasu Mythic for Kiriko. Two new events took place in Season 3, Ultimate Valentine and Pachimachi, with one returning one in the April Fool's patch, along with the first collaboration with One Punch Man. I know I can't just drop that bombshell and not immediately address it, but we will, don't worry. But first, let's talk about the Ultimate Valentine event, which brought with it the game mode Love of Geometry. Yeah, that was fine. This one was nothing much, honestly. It was just another deathmatch, but in a team deathmatch setting, 4v4, where everyone was playing as Hanzo in his new Cupid skin. Peak skin design, by the way, it's beautiful. The mode was first to 50 total kills, or whoever had the most when the time ran out, but that's boring. All with the return of Hanzo's old scatter arrow ability, which rewarded double points for kills. All the while taking place on the returning God-forsaken Paris map. I mean, yeah, it's only on the second point of Paris, thanks to the deathmatch setting preset, making some maps smaller, but Paris is still a stinky map either way. As someone who does not play Hanzo and struggles with patience when it comes to the sniper playstyle, I did not have much fun with this game mode. Sure, it's a fun idea, no doubt about that, and Hanzo has more of an aggressive style of sniper play, but I still struggled nonetheless. I didn't have a great time. A skill issue I know, but my feelings are hurt, so back off! I'm sorry, that was way too aggressive. On a more positive note, we also got, you're not gonna believe this, a text-based dating sim visual novel, Overwatch, Love Never Dies. Yep, it's a dating sim with multiple routes where you can choose to date Genji, Mercy, and Hanzo in a secret route you can unlock by completing the route with the other two. This is pure silliness in the best way possible, and I loved it so much. It's just such a cute and fun idea, and it was clear to see that everyone involved in making this had a blast with it too. Overall radiating a sense of joy in every frame of the 30-minute adventure. Yeah, half an hour is nothing, but get off your high horse, alright? It was just a silly new thing for everyone to try, and it ended up being a great experience with legitimately funny moments too. There was no harm in it, honestly. Okay, I probably didn't have to get that defensive about it, but you know how it can be. There's always going to be the naysayers out there when they want new things, but that new thing isn't what they wanted, you know? Whatever. Overwatch is good. You're wrong. And, yeah, of course, I went Mercy's route first, but that's because my wife always comes first. Hang on. Moving on for that, we can finally address it. The One Punch Man crossover, which ran from March 7th to April 6th, 2023. There were no new game modes with this one, instead it was just a bunch of crossover skins with heroes pretty much cosplaying some of the characters from the One Punch Man series. The skins being sold in the shop for prices. Obviously Doomfist was Saitama, though honestly any other hero getting the skin would have been a huge injustice. Genji was Genos, Kiriko was the Terrible Tornado, and we also had Soldier 76 as Moomin Rider, which was a free skin you could earn from completing challenges. Side note, Moomin Rider is the GOAT, and would not be accepting any other opinion. It also included other cosmetics, like highlight intros for Doomfist and Soldier, a victory post for Kiriko and Soldier, as well as name cards and Overwatch's new weapon charms, these cute little things you can put on the hero's weapon. Like the Moon Rider skin, the two charms, Saitama's fist, a little Boros head, as well as a name card and highlight intro for Soldier, were also available through challenges. Honestly, at the time, hearing Overwatch 2 was going to get a crossover with something, let alone an anime series as big as One Punch Man, was insane. The idea of Overwatch crossovers was something discussed in the community for eons, as I'm sure it was amongst the actual devs. So to finally see it happen was awe-inspiring, and should he let the floodgates open with fans coming up with ideas for potential future crossovers. It helped that the devs were big fans of the series too, the same being said for subsequent crossovers, except maybe one. So it was easy to see the love and care put into the designs of the skins, while still keeping the recognisability of the heroes cosplaying them intact. That would definitely become a recurring statement. Then, from March 21st through to April 4th, we got a returning event in Pachimachi, which previously had been in 2021 as a kind of limited time challenge mode, which you could earn the Pachimachi Roadhog skin from. The returning version of Pachimachi was just kind of the same thing, bringing back the arcade mode of Roadhog's Catch-A-Mai, a 3v3 deathmatch style game mode where you have to be the first to collect 20 Pachimais by eliminating your opponents and then collecting their dropped Maris. It's similar to the Overwatch dating sim, but only in the sense it's a silly but fun idea to mess around with for a little while. But I think it lacks a lot beyond that. See, you want a game mode that brings you back constantly, but with Catch-A-Mai, you feel like you've seen everything the mode has to offer after like 3 games, or at least that's how I feel about it anyway. Maybe they could increase the team size to 4v4 or increase the amount of Maris required to win, but I'm not a game designer at the end of the day, so maybe I'm talking out of my ass. That's not me saying it's a bad game mode in that it's boring or anything, but After a few games, I don't feel the need to play any more of it, that's all. Maybe that's a hot take, but I'm not sure honestly. All I know is I'm not a huge fan of the Patrick Mario Roadhog skin, so maybe my feelings about the mode are subconsciously affected by that. During both those events, we got the return of the mini April Fool's event. In prior years, the April Fool's update added googly eyes to the heroes and even on the payloads in the escort and hybrid modes. In Overwatch 2, while they kept this tradition, they made it a little more special by getting the voice cast of the roster to record some, in a lot of cases, admittedly hilarious ultimate voice lines. That's the one. That one's golden. Good, great, awesome, outstanding, amazing. Truly. Into Season 4 now. This one ran from April 11th to June 13th, and the newest hero was Lifeweaver, a support hero, and what a hero he was on release. We also got the Galactic Emperor Mythic for Sigma. So the first new event we got was one I completely forgot about. The Silk Slam Wong Songkran Challenge. My sincerest apologies for butchering that, or Thai New Year, running from April 6th, 2023 to April 25th, 2023. Goes without saying, but it tied in with the Thai New Year and it offered you the chance to play the newest hero alongside Bob. Yeah, Ash's companion that appears beside her a lot of the time. I don't know, maybe it was just for the Bob and Weave pun they can make for the name of the game mode. It's yet another 3v3 deathmatch style game mode where everyone plays as Weaver, but to make it more exciting, both teams get their own Bob, and the point is to use Lifeweaver's life ability to move the hunk of metal around strategically to get one over on the opponents until either team has gotten 15 total elims or whoever's ahead at the time when the time expires. Guys, I know Lifeweaver is useless in combat, but this is ridiculous. All jokes aside, I think I forgot about this one before doing research because I don't think I ever actually played a game mode that came with it. Yeah, I owned a Cassius skin for Lifeweaver which could be got through the associated challenges. I must have done the whole complete a certain amount of games thing instead to get it, I guess. Well, no thoughts on that, so next up is Star Watch. Tying in with the theme of the season, that of a space opera, this PvP 4v4 mode made you either take control of 3 points in a row from the defenders, or prevent the enemy team from doing so by either being on the Watcher's team, who would always be attacking, or the Infinite Empire, who would always be defending, taking place on another godforsaken map, Horizon Lunar Colony. Or Infinite Galactrius as it's called, which I won't lie, that name goes hard. The mode had a variety of heroes you could play as. The Watchers had Doomfist as the Bonebreaker, Winston as the Extraterrestrial, Echo as 3CHO, that was not exactly subtle, Wrecking Ball as an asteroid, Ash as an intergalactic smuggler, Lucio as a space pirate, and Baptiste as a bounty hunter. The Infinite Empire had Sigma as a Galactic Emperor in his Mythic skin for that season, Diva as the Infinite Ace, Soldier 76 as an Infinite Guard, Bastion as the Infinite Annihilator, Sojourn as the Infinite Admiral, Brigitte as a Royal Captain, and Mercy as the Infinite Seer. Yeah, there are only 7 heroes in the Infinite Empire as opposed to 8 on the Watchers, but in all fairness, both have a cool cast to choose from, except Wrecking Ball, because my hate for that hero knows no bounds. There were also some PvE elements to this mode, like the side of the Infinite Empire having these massive turrets that can be healed weirdly enough, as turrets in normal gameplay can't unless you're Torbjorn with his own. Honestly, a damn fun mode. It's very clear they were testing the water for flashpoints later release with this one, considering how there are 3 points to take in quick session and Horizon New Colony only had 2 originally. In all fairness though, Horizon is a much smaller map than the Flashpoint ones, so comparison feels a little unfair, and the fact both teams aren't fighting over taking the points, so I guess it was Assault but more of it. One upgrade. All in all though, a decent one. I would really like to see the team do more stuff like this in the future where there's a little story involved too. Wink wink, it's fun. Second, even though it came with no new modes, I really need mentioning anyway because it's important to a lot of people, including me. The Celebrate Pride event. This is one of the rare reoccurring events that runs the whole way through June and is simply a celebration of Pride Month and the LGBTQ+ community. I think celebrating Pride is important. After all, a lot of folks who are LGBTQ+ do get harassed, mistreated, or are just frowned upon simply for being who they are, and it doesn't take a genius to tell you that that sucks. It shouldn't be that way, but yet it is for a lot of people. So I think it's necessary to celebrate who you are from time to time, even though corporations, as usual, have homogenized it nowadays and made it more of a publicity stunt to profit off those individuals. I identify as bisexual. It's not something I wear on my sleeve, but it doesn't mean I'm ashamed of the fact. I'm just not as open as others may be with their sexuality or what they identify as. But at the end of the day, be who you want to be, not who others want you to be. Your life is your own. Feel free to take control of it and make your own decisions. It was also during Season 4 that we got a first for Overwatch in a community created map, Talantis, which was available from April 25th to May 8th, 2023. Never before or since has community created content to this degree been featured in Overwatch 2. Stuff before and after have been along the lines of certain sprays or even a mode we'll touch on later that presented changes to the hero roster, but nothing like maps. Full disclosure, actually, the map was designed using ideas from Twitch chat during the Twitch Makes Overwatch livestream in December of 2022, so it wasn't community crafted in the traditional sense. But if we're talking technically, then yes, it was. However, I have no thoughts on this one because I unfortunately didn't play it. I have to question what the hell I was up to at points in Season 4 because it's not like I wasn't there for the season, I didn't skip it, yet somehow I missed out on a lot of things. It's a shame too because I've always wanted a map that takes place underwater. Not necessarily with water physics and all, but something like an underwater base that features a lot of glass or whatever, where you can see the fish swimming around. I'm a simple man. Either way, an awesome little thing, and maybe we'll even see this map in the future, and if so, that'd be super cool. But considering we haven't heard anything about the map, or even the thought of allowing more community created content to disagree going forward, it's doubtful sadly. Moving on, Season 5 ran from June 13th to August 10th, 2023. We had 3 new game modes, or 4 if you want to get funny about it, plus we had Adventure Trace as the Mythic. So there was this thing called Quest Watch, an in-universe tabletop game that you could progress by advancing in the Battle Pass, which would unlock new dialogue between the characters present at the game. That was very clearly a Dungeons & Dragons inspired thing, without it actually being that. Kinda like the season as a whole really. No harm in being D&D inspired, by the way. I think D&D is really cool, even though I've never had a chance to play it because I don't have any friends. Then there was the game mode called Defeat the Demon Lord. Essentially, this game mode was similar to the tons of custom games you can find in that playlist that would have you fight a giant enemy with tons of health and could very easily kill you, but it was 11 vs 1 or something similar. Usually called some weird thing like 11 kids vs 1 dads. I don't know man, I don't question this community sometimes. It was all centered around trying to defeat a giant Reinhardt in the Demon Lord skin he received that season that makes me regret not buying the Season 5 Battle Pass even more. Just... So, as I was saying, it was a game mode. I have no recollection of playing this one, so I guess I didn't even touch it once, but I'm doubtful on that one. I feel like I did play it at least a couple times, but if I didn't, that wouldn't surprise me, honestly. I kind of skipped the season. Well, I mean, I played it, I just didn't buy the Battle Pass, so I didn't fully partake in it. A stupid decision in hindsight. What is my issue sometimes, man? Anyway, the annual Summer Games event returned during this time, running from July 11th to July 25th, 2023. And it returning here with a brand new game mode did nothing for me either. I've mentioned in the past how I'm not the biggest fan of Lucy Ball, as it always seemed to try and be something it wasn't. Rocket League would be the best comparison, and always felt kind of bad to play. Granted, I've suffered on it in recent years, but maybe that's the Stockholm Syndrome kicking in with how long it's been around. Either way though, the new game modes we got after 6 years of having nothing but Lucy Ball should be exciting, right? Well, kinda, but only for the fact of it being something new, Winston's Volleyball. I don't know how they did it, they really made Lucy Ball look like a much better option to play with this one. Yeah, I don't like Winston's Volleyball at all. I think it's how floaty and slow everything feels. With Lucy Ball at least, there are moments when things can get intense, but here, man, I'm falling asleep every time I play it. Maybe it's because I don't quite understand it, but I don't enjoy it. It's not my cup of crumpets. The Mischief and Magic event, however, awesome. This ran from July 15th to August 10th, 2023, and gave us a prop hunt game mode. Yep, prop hunt. Everyone kind of knows what prop hunt is, right? Well, as a strategy might not, so to explain, it's hide and seek more or less, but the hiders, Kyukos, can transform into certain objects around the map, a smaller version of Blizzard with more objects on it, to blend in and make it harder for seekers, Genjis, to find them. I think everyone enjoys what prop hunt is, so it's no surprise I enjoyed it a lot too. Again, it's more of an imaginative take on Overwatch, even if the idea is nothing new. And with it being a limited time game mode, the presence of it certainly wasn't hurting anyone, and if anything, the limited time nature of it made it even more fun, because you want to play it as much as possible in that time frame. I guess it also helped that it was my first time playing a prop hunt like game mode, because I did go up playing Gary's mod or whatever, so yeah, amazing first impressions, made all the more better playing with friends. One last thing I want to bring your valuable attention to, between July 6th and July 20th, so mid-season in other words, we got 3 anime shorts under the name of Genesis. Genesis were these beautiful shorts focused on the early in-universe history of Overwatch, recounting different events in each episode, like what potentially led to the Omnic Uprising, to the rise of Overwatch at the beginning of the Omnic Crisis, to the Uprising at its peak, with Hope being tied to a very important individual in the lore, Aurora, otherwise known as the Iris. The Iris is referenced in a number of interactions and voice lines in-game, included by Zenyatta and Sigma, interesting enough. but short to the point, they're a very key figure. I feel like I'm being redundant by saying this, but these were so damn cool, man. Many, including myself, have been asking for some kind of consistently running Overwatch series for years, and so to finally get one, being a sort of groundwork for what a full-length animated series could look like, was awesome. It was a really nice lead into Season 6, which was supposed to be the big one in terms of content, and overall showed all the potential Overwatch still had as a game. Things happened in the future that might mean we'll never get something like this again, but for what it was worth, Genesis was, well, the genesis for hope to be rekindled in Overwatch. Moving right into Season 6 Invasion now, which ran from August 10th, 2023 to October 10th, 2023, and it gave us a new support hero in Iliari, along with the already talked about Flashpoint game mode and its Survivasa New Drug City maps, and we got the A7000 War God Mythic for Ana. And when I say this season is the big one, I mean that. Season 6 also gave us Hero Mastery, I-score based game mode where you can learn the ins and outs of specific heroes, who the devs are still releasing mastery courses for through a drip feed kind of method. The first batch of courses we got for this were for Tracer, Mercy, Reinhardt, Sojourn and Winston. Most like this that are for seeing if you can beat your previous high score or your friends are kind of alright. Not wholly my thing because I just know I ain't gonna beat any of my friends in these, but inferiority complex aside, I'd rather just stick with the normal stuff. Can't fault them for trying at least. But do you remember that comment I made way back towards the start of the video about Overwatch 2 being remnants of the game we were originally teased? Well, Season 6 is where that comes into play, with the introduction of event missions and story missions, but whoa, hold on there, Buckaroo. The story missions are their own well of thoughts and opinions, so I'm going to save those for later, but just know they were introduced here in Season 6. But as for the event missions, though they are or were supposed to be similar to the story missions, they aren't as deep, so it won't hurt to cover them, here. The event mission I'll be talking about will be Underworld because it's the only one that exists as of now. Regardless, Underworld is a PvE style mission, not too dissimilar to previous Archives modes, the most appropriate example being Uprise because how Underworld also takes place on a variation of King's Row, but with areas not previously seen as a nice little bonus. The first mode involves you saving your bot, TS1, the same kind that appears on the push maps, from Null Sector, then escorting it to the final point of King's Row while protecting it in order to save a new character to the lore known as Iggy, as well as the titular Underworld, which is the final payload escort point of King's Row. And to mention the Archives lot of missions again, Underworld did also offer challenge variants of the mode, with all 4 versions of the mode having different heroes to play. But besides 9 and the 10 split across the base version of the mode and the Death from Above variant, where you had to dodge random missile strikes, the other heroes didn't really fit the lore of the event mission. And to go over that, available to play in the base mode were Winston, Torbjorn, Tracer and Lucio, while the available heroes in the Death from Above variant were D.Va, Reinhardt, Genji, Soldier 76, the odd one out, Brigitte and Mercy. As for the other 2 variants, in Ultimate Zones, a version where your ultimate only charged when standing in certain spotlighted areas, you can play as Roadhog, Ashe, Cassidy, Junkrat, Baptiste and Moira. Admittedly, I do like the lineup here because all the heroes have affiliations with another hero in the lineup in the lore of Overwatch, but it's not quite like the previous 2 sets, other than Soldier 76, with them all being on the reunited team of Overwatch by Overwatch 2. No, even that doesn't make sense because in the Resistance story mission, they were in the process of recruiting Lucio, but screw it, who cares, for now. Anyway, the final variant was Invasion Mystery Heroes, where players would periodically have their hero switch randomly, but whatever ult charge was gained with the prior hero was kept for the hero you would just force switch to, so fortunately, there wasn't a situation where you never get to use an ult. As for the heroes in this one, everything from the previous variants of the mode is playable, but with the additions of Zarya, Bastion, Echo, Mei, Pharah and Sojourn. Now, because it was essentially a more expanded upon version of Archives Uprising game mode, I was bound to love it. However, there's not too much beyond that I can say because it's PvE. You know what you gain from Overwatch with its smaller PvE modes, but even if they have a certain level of expectation when it comes to that, they are still a good time. Oh, Uprising, my beloved, my nostalgia yearns for you. However, there's one massive elephant in the room that we need to address. This whole time, I've been using past tense when referring to the Underworld because the Underworld event was temporary and I have a sneaking suspicion the event missions won't be coming back, but we will get to that. Last thing before Season 7, I want to touch on the hero progression system introduced in Season 6. If you weren't aware, Overwatch 1 had a level system whereby continuously leveling up, you could get a new border around your hero in the bottom left at every 100 levels, which then gave you a little star up to 5 stars until every 600 levels, where you then get a new border, e.g. silver, gold, then platinum. However, Overwatch 2 removed this feature and your level got reset every season for the new Battle Pass, like how any other game with Battle Pass does. In all fairness, the loss of the borders wasn't a huge deal. They were bragging rights at the end of the day, and an unfortunate reminder of how much time you put into the game, but they were a neat self-motivating thing to work on for those who enjoyed seeing the border progress. In Season 6, they brought in a new hero progression system that was kind of the same thing, where you can level up with each hero to get rewards at specific levels by achieving certain things, like using a hero's ability enough times or doing enough healing or damage. In some senses, I think it's a much better version of the old level up system, mostly because it's got more to it than just getting a different number. Sure, you're still missing the visual representation of it in proper gameplay, but overall it feels more satisfying, giving you something to work on with your favourite heroes, and I guess more content by default if you want to define it as such. Not only that, but you also have individual progression levels for the 3 roles and an overall progression level, creating a pretty satisfying feedback loop. And honestly, I think the system adds an extra degree of competitiveness to the game, like competing with your friends for the highest overall progression level, or on a specific hero. It's fun, and something I feel is underappreciated, as I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about that perspective. Plus, hey, I think it adds a degree of aura too. Like, imagine coming across someone who's got progression level 100 on a hero. Considering how long it can take to get levels as you get up there, you can't lie and say that's not intimidating. Alright, so into Season 7 Rise of Darkness now. This ran from October 10th to December 5th, 2023, and it gave a new control map in Samoa, the Onryo Mythic for Hanzo, and 2 events, with 2 collabs. The return of Halloween Terror from October 10th to November 2nd, with new game modes in Trials of the Sanctuary, which was also a crossover with Blizzard's Diablo series, and the second was a collab with, get this, Le Seraphim, a relatively new K-pop group at the time, giving us Concert Clash to play. The second was definitely out of pocket given the theme of the season, you know, dark and spooky, but it sure was fun. To cover the collab details before the game modes, with the Diablo collab, which ran from October 10th to November 2nd, 2023, we got skins for Moira serving as Lilith, Pharah repping Inarius, and the badass Imperious Reinhardt, all of which can be bought in the shop for prices. Supposedly, we did get a Diablo skin in Season's Battle Pass, as Mo's unwreckable, but it's wreckable, so I do not care. Why does he have nipple rings? It's so weird! That terrifying reality now forever burnt into your retinas aside, this collab gave us the game mode Trials of Sanctuary. This was actually a PvE mode, not too dissimilar to the other Halloween Terror game modes, where you're fighting hordes of enemies and a number of bosses, or to get to the final boss, bless his mother Lilith, or a gigantic Mora in layman's terms. This all took place around the final payload escort point of Blizzard World, a fitting map really, but it was changed slightly to make things less cramped. This is probably also one of the more interesting new gamers because it let you find items to best your abilities, and you can get drops from the bosses that can upgrade your chosen hero's kit into better versions. I remember having a blast with this one with friends trying to complete it on the legendary difficulty, the hardest difficulty these modes can be played on, all for the Hero of the Light player title. A hard as title, mind you, but sadly we weren't able to overcome it. Legendary difficulty is no joke, man, it's some serious stuff. I saw a lot of people joking around this time that Activision Blizzard struggled getting collabs very much with anyone, so they just collabed with themselves. A really funny statement in hindsight, considering the collab we got next in the same season, Le Seraphim. I suppose it was a few seasons since the last collab with One Punch Man, so in some ways I could understand the sentiment at the time, but that's not the point. Shut up! For some background on Le Seraphim, they're a South Korean K-pop group comprised of 5 members. Sakura, Kim Kai-won, Hyo Yoo-jin, Kazuha, and Hong Yoon-jae. I would like to apologise, I know for a goddamn fact I butchered those names, I'm genuinely so sorry. They all have an assigned gemstone too, pink diamonds, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby respectively. It's not important, arguably, but I thought I'd mention it anyway, because it's kind of interesting. I'll be real, I don't quite know what that last part means in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it's a way of giving each of the members their own personal identity. That sounds a little messed up, TBH, like, here, this is your entire personality now. Like, wow. It's probably not that deep, but knowing the K-pop industry sometimes, perhaps it could be. I'll admit, I'm struggling to get my thoughts together here because I really don't know much about the K-pop scene. The only real exposure I've had to it, besides that period where you couldn't go 5 feet on social media without hearing or seeing something about BTS, has been with the group Blackpink, and even then, I only really used them as a gag mention in my original Hatsune Miku SAPs. Don't watch that, it's garbage, so, Though I may be more lost than my friends are when I'm explaining Hatsune Miku to them, the Le Seraphim collab just radiated good vibes, honestly. The skins included were Anti-Fragile BB for Brigitte, Anti-Fragile Dazzle for Diva, Anti-Fragile Kira Kira for Kiriko, Anti-Fragile Slaystar for Sombra, and Anti-Fragile Tracy for Tracer. All of which came with emotes, victory poses, name cards, and a weapon charm for Kiriko. As expected, these can be purchased in the shop for prices. There was also a Junkrat skin you could earn through challenges, Foxy James. Doesn't take a genius to figure this one out, but he's supposed to be one of the stands for the Seraphim. Though I guess they all are, really, considering the design team's philosophy towards collab skins, that being cosplays. I'll admit, I came close to caving and buying these skins at the time just because of how pretty they all are and the immaculate vibes they were radiating, and anyway, yeah, they're nice. You can really see the love and care that was put into them. We also got a tie-in animated short for this collab, Perfect Night. The whole reason the Seraphim was collabing with Overwatch 2 to begin with, to promote their new song. I wasn't sure why to fit this in otherwise, because media-related stuff I was planning to save for the relevant hero when we get to them, and any media releases usually hero-related, but why not? This is always true and beautifully animated too. This is right here from the animation team. Perfect Night is a beautifully animated, fun short that, while overt advertising with both the thing or people Overwatch is collabing with, along with the new expensive skins they want to buy, it's just a lot of fun. There's no need to be cynical at all times, you know. Sometimes it's okay to enjoy yourself, just like the Overwatch guilds here are going to enjoy themselves at the little Seraphim concert. Nailed it, baby! As for the actual concert clash mode itself, yeah, it was fun. It was a 3v3 mode where you had to destroy these ticket machines placed around downtown Busan and turn them into a certain capture points to score, with first team to 25 winning. It was at least something different and not just another deathmatch style mode, but not my play at T personally. Though, in all fairness, the idea is entertaining enough to carry the whole mode for me, even if the gameplay doesn't necessarily. And it was towards the end of Season 7 that we got the first of what would become a commonplace for the new heroes going forward, a limited talent trophy before they debuted in the following season, starting with Mauna. I genuinely appreciate this practice a lot because it prevents situations where heroes can release too powerful or too weak in their debut season, allowing for the devs to gather feedback from the community during this time and make any necessary tweaks they feel are right just before they go live for real. Plus, there's no harm in getting to play the new hero you're excited for early, right? Well, I've seen some say the time trials take away from the hero's actual debut somewhat because players, naturally, are less excited when they've already got the chance to play them. It's a subjective matter, but I don't mind the fact. I think it's worth it so we don't potentially end up with an unbalanced mess of a hero. Well, that was a lot, but making our way into Season 8 called The Hunt now, which ran from December 5th, 2023 to February 13th, 2024. Here we got Mauna as the newest tank and the Grand Beast Mythic for Orisa, along with the second batch of Hero Master courses for D.Va, Echo, Genji, Lucio and Mei. The three events that happened in Season 8 were Battle Pass. Battle Pass. Oh, it lives rent-free in my mind. The three events that happened in Season 8 were Battle of the Beast, tying in with the theme of Season 8, along with the return of Winter Wonderland and the Lunar New Year event, but thankfully for me, at least in terms of this video length, only Battle of the Beast was a new mode. This mode ran from December 5th, 2023 to December 18th, 2023, and it was fine. Okay, that's not doing it justice. Battle of the Beast was another imaginative take on a new game mode in Overwatch 2, in that it was a PvPvE mode. Yeah, player versus environment. Hearing that might make you think you're destined to get third-partied from elements outside your control, but thankfully, it wasn't like that. You know, I'll just show you this excerpt here from the Overwatch fandom wiki. Yes, I know the sentiment around fandom, but it's genuinely my best resource for Overwatch a lot of the time, so bear with. With that said, it's on screen because to describe it to you is a lot harder than it should be. Weirdly, it's easy to understand in execution, but it is how it is. I don't have any gameplay of my own for this mode, so I'm just going to assume I played it one time with friends without thinking about clipping anything, and we all decided that was enough, so yeah, that's probably what happened. So I wasn't being entirely truthful about the Battle of the Beast event being the only one to introduce the new game mode. If you want to get technical, the Lunar New Year Year of the Dragon event that ran from January 30th to February 20th did feature the prop hunt game modes from Season 5, but on the Lunar New Year version of Lee Jung's Night Market map. So if you want to class that as a new game mode, that's up to you, I guess. However, I have no gameplay for it, so I guess I didn't care enough? Sounds about right. It was the Lunar New Year, an event I've never cared about. And speaking of not caring enough, we're into Season 9 now! Okay, I realise how that might sound, so to clarify, I meant on my part, not the devs. Anyway, Season 9 ran from February 13th, 2024 to April 16th, 2024, and it gave us a damn good amount, including the Ancient Corner Mythic for Moira? Including the Ancient Corner Mythic for Moira, and a change to the damage roll's passive ability, now reducing healing received by targets hit by damage heroes. I didn't change because the previous passive, speeding up reload time and movement speed temporarily after getting elims, didn't exactly apply to certain damage roll heroes. Not a fun change for tanks though, who already suffer from getting healed and just in general, but I digress. So the biggest change Season 9 brought about was how the competitive game mode worked, not only resetting everyone's ranks, but also introducing a new Jade weapon variant to buy with comp points that also got reset, and any points you had before are just legacy ones now, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. Just let me use them, Team 4! As well as a whole new rank, Champion. They also reworked how the system works as a whole, now requiring you to raise up a percentage bar enough to rank up, how much you gain or lose being affected by certain new modifiers like uphill battle, slightly increasing percentage gained after winning, or reversal, doing the same but for percentage lost after losing. Both meaning there was a difference in average rank between teams, all instead of winning 5 games to maybe get a different rank. My passive aggressiveness there is misplaced though, because this new system blows. In concept, it's an alright one. It's essentially a more refined version of what the SR system was back in Overwatch 1. Now with a more clear understanding of what's going on. Like why you lost so much percentage on losing, or why you gained so much upon winning. In a way, I'm fine with it. I appreciate the transparency. But at the same time, damn do I yearn for the system of old! I probably shouldn't have slammed the desk there. I really don't like doing that. As someone who experienced the SR system and its existence throughout Overwatch 1, I can tell you for sure this system in Overwatch 2 may be more refined, but is more hostile in return. By that I mean not only are you going nowhere half the time because you can't get a winning streak for the life of you because you're just going 50-50 every single time you play, or because that's what the matchmaker wanted to do with you by deliberately placing you with teammates with lower win percentages so you will lose, or to prevent you from climbing because it doesn't think you're worthy enough of being a higher rank. And you're also getting this heinous feedback afterwards that makes you feel worse in the long run. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with the information I'm given here? All the negative modifiers are asinine. Lost streak, yeah, I understand what that means, but you're gonna punish me more for this loser's queue that you put me in? Then there's calibration and volatile. God, I feel like I see the calibration one way too much. Like, what am I supposed to do with it? Honestly. And volatile is just an extra layer on the shit Sunday that is the calibration modifier, because me losing a game while your system is unsure about my rank is my fault? Hello? Surely your system would have a better idea by that point, especially if I was in calibration while winning beforehand, which has happened to me, I assure you. Honestly, being in calibration while winning has to be the worst because you just know you're going to see the volatile modifier after your next loss, which, oh hey, is every other game because you're going 50-50. And the reason you're in calibration in the first place is because of the 50-50 matchmaking. Recently, I saw somebody argue in favour of the 50-50 matchmaking competitive, saying it's a good thing because it's meant to keep you where you're supposed to be at. And while I guess I can agree with that to some extent, I'm pretty sure a system in place like that will discourage people from playing is a bad thing, because where's the logic in discouraging people from playing your game? A game that's often marketed as a competitive shooter. It makes no sense. Oh, and reversal's an extra kick in the Zenyatta's too. Like, thanks game, way to make me feel worse about myself. Listen, I'm a support player the overwhelming majority of the time I'm playing comp, so it's not my fault if my tank doesn't want to push forward, nor if my DPS teammates can get the lead or capitalise on one for their lives for as much as I am trying to help them. And don't you dare give me that shit about supports being the reason most fights are lost, because, believe it or not, I'm doing my job to the best of my ability, and most oftentimes that requires me to heal bot because our tank is made of cardboard, or I have to hard pocket because a lot of the DPS players can't win because they're so reliant on my staff being shoved up there. I am a support player. I get to decide who lives and dies, and if my support duo is preoccupied with the backline because they're getting harassed by the other team's DPS, and the DPS or tank on my team refuse to help them, I'm gonna go aid them and sacrifice one of the DPS probably, so we have more chance of keeping our tank up that is most likely frontlining and crumbles to f***ing dust the moment they lose any amount of healer, because they're basically playing 1v5 with how everyone targets the tank, because one support isn't enough to even stand a chance, so I need the other one to help me. Sorry, I'm sorry. That last part was a bit of a rant, as if this whole conversation hasn't been so far. By the way, I made a reference to a loser's queue a couple times in there, and let me be clear with you, that's not a thing I've made up to garner sympathy. That's generally something that existed at one point that the devs indirectly referred to in a Season 10 blog post, and said the matchmakers less likely to do that now, but I think it's found itself in a different form. The system, man. It always hurts to see your SR never really go anywhere or keep going down on Overwatch 1, but the devs really asked themselves how they could make that system more aggressive on somebody's mental states, and they went through with it. Not only that, but the whole thing feels like it was heavily designed in favour of stacking. Stacking is just teaming with people specifically for playing team games, to put it in the simplest way possible. And while I don't have a problem with the concept of stacking, hell, the 3 stacking, 4 stacking, or even the red 5 stacking is some of the most fun I've ever had playing Overwatch. But if you're not stacking, you're not going far, simply put. Seems like a whatever issue to complain about at first, but not everyone can get a whole 5-stack going, or enough to where things go along smoothly, a 4-stack bare minimum, and even then, have one that's frequent enough. People got shit to do nowadays, everyone's got responsibilities, so overall, the system feels exclusively in favour to a certain subset of people who've been blessed by the gods of luck and get everyone on at the same time. That sounds asinine, I know, that's not actually a thing, but it definitely feels that way if you played enough competitive to experience both sides of the coin. You can argue that I'm mentally weak and can't take criticism, which to some extent is what the negative modifiers are giving you a reason as to why you've lost whatever amount of percentage, but I can take negative feedback, buddy. I am the arbiter of negative feedback to myself, but this system gets you. It will get you at some point. And with the way Overwatch is as a hero shooter, this system becomes ever more increasingly taxing on you with how certain games can pan out, often dictated by the heroes on the field. Some you may absolutely loathe running into, either because you hate their playstyle or, most often than not, are played by the absolute sweatiest of people that have not touched grass in years nor have showered in decades. Yeah, actually, you know what, to help those of you out, here's a tutorial. Step 1. Go outside. Step 2. Touch grass. Step 3. Take a shower. Maybe not like that though. This whole system, it makes me want to... Oh shit. Okay, I think I got all that out of my system, so we can just move on now. My apologies for that. I really just threw all 3 live action segments together like that, huh? Oh, I think it's worth mentioning too that the new Jade weapon blade for comm points to be used on was introduced in this season, as I mentioned way back when. Personally, these don't appeal to me. Green's a very easy colour to mess up in my opinion, and while I don't believe it was messed up here, speaking generally, I just prefer the gold variants. The psychology of gold being a reward works better than Jade, you know. It's odd, even with the time limited nature of the Jade variants, the devs say how they'll only be around for about a year until they're probably sorted out with another colour variant. I still have no reason to use my precious comp points on one, mostly because of how long it takes me to even get enough to purchase one. You'd think that'd be more motivating, but no, I'm sticking with the gold Sphinx. Oh! Well, with that over with, remember that comment I made some number of paragraphs ago, the one about me not caring? Well, that refers to the new game mode we got in this one, but not regarding the quality, rather the fact I didn't clip anything from this one. See, if I had even the tiniest bit of foresight, that comment's made worse by the fact that some of the gameplay you've been seeing is from like August or earlier of last year, so my selective memory be damned instead. Regardless, Cosmic Crisis is the event I'm referring to. This ran from February 13th, 2024 to March 12th, 2024, and gave us a game mode of the same name. This was a rare instance of another dedicated PvE game mode post Season 6 that had players complete various tasks while fighting off Null Sector, weirdly enough, I'll add to that in a moment. The game mode sounds fairly vanilla at first. Vanilla's a rocky ice cream flavour by the way, I will not be taking questions, but something else was at play in this game mode, otherworldly beings. Yeah, so at the time with the kinda theme of Season 9, otherworldly entities, Cosmic Crisis involves the Dark Forces slash the Ravager trying to corrupt one of the teammates at the beginning of the round, and bring them over to its side, which the selected player can choose either to do or not do later on. In fact, the Ravager has taken control of the Null Sector a lot on the game mode's version of Antarctic Peninsula, so I guess that kinda explains their presence there. Also, the Antarctic Peninsula map as a whole is a smaller part of the larger Eco Point Antarctica area in Overwatch lore or whatever, but I'm still going to refer to it as Antarctic Peninsula because that's what it's known as, and most people don't know the whole peninsula is a part of the Eco Point. Never mind that though, because there were also variations of the game modes, like Death from Above, the same as mentioned back in Season 6 in the Underworld section, Molten Core, where defeated enemies will drop pools of lava when destroyed like Torbjorn's Molten Core ultimate, hence the name, and Thunderstorm, where you take damage from getting too close to enemies. Cosmic Crisis was a bit of fun with friends, and it felt really cool to hear the Ravager talk to you at the start of the game, with only you being able to hear them, keeping the team guessing at who it is if you or whoever doesn't give it away. It's kind of like Among Us, in a way actually, where Scream gets shoved to survive being hunted by the imposter while doing their tasks. After all, he could be any one of us. Obviously, the game mode wasn't to the same degree as Among Us. If anything, it's more like one obscure children's TV show, Trapped, where one kid is assigned the role of the saboteur and their job was to, well, sabotage the other kids from completing whatever it was that they were doing while not getting caught. Kind of an out of nowhere reference from me, huh? But there you go, I guess. Best comparison for that. Moving on from that, we got the second anime collab for Overwatch 2 with Cowboy Bebop, an insanely iconic anime that I have yet to see, even though I would honestly love to, but because of my inability to just sit down and watch things most of the time, I haven't. Here's my apology letter you're never going to get in the mail. This collab ran from March 12th to March 25th and gave us skins for Ash as Faye Valentine, Cassidy as Spike Spiegel, which your guess is as good as mine with what happened here, but nevertheless, we also got Mauna as Jet Black and Sombra as Ed, as usual, all of which can be bought in the shop for prices. Of course, all these came with name cards and an emote for Cassidy and one for Sombra, highlight intros for Cassidy and Ash, and 2 weapon charms, Swordfish 2 and Bonsai. There was also a free skin through challenges for Wreckable as Ein, but it's Wreckable so I don't care. These challenges did also grant a name card, profile pic and Ein weapon charm, which at the very least is cute, so in a way, I kind of regret not doing the associated challenges. For Ein, not Wreckable, don't misconstrue my wording for being in favour of the vermin. And like Mauna in Season 7, Rise of Darkness, towards the end of Season 9 is where we got the limited time trial Adventure, my beloved, a time trial I really made the most of. And finally, the return of the April Fool's mini event again, this time being a whole ass patch, changing some heroes up in the mode in the arcade. A few of these changes were pretty funny, like Mauna being tiny and on the opposite side of the coin, Brigitte being bloody massive to play into the tank-like feeling she is often labelled with when playing against her, or Tracer's recoil being changed to either send her to the past or future, changing how her pulse pistols work. So many of these changes were super creative and entertaining a lot of the time, not to mention the actual patch notes were right to read through when they came out. The devs can be creative when given the chance, and I'm glad that Overwatch 2 has given that chance more often with the type of game that it is, encouraging them to do so. But yeah, into the 10th season of Overwatch 2 now, Venture 4th. Running from April 16th to June 20th, we got Venture for real, the first damage hero since Sojourn back on the release of Overwatch 2. It's a little insane, honestly, how he went so long without a new hero for the damage class, but there always has been more damage heroes than tanks or support, so it kinda makes sense. We also got a new event in Overwatch and out-of-pocket collaboration with Porsche. Yeah, the car brand. We'll get to it. Season 10 was the season to introduce the Mythic Prisms currency, and while I already said my piece on the currency, they're still unreasonably priced. Look, I get that you want to make the Mythic skins seem extra special and valuable in a way, but I feel like by introducing these, along with the new Mythic shop, where you can bypass Mythic skins that are at least 2 seasons old, you've devalued them in a way and made the battle passes feel less special. It's kind of whatever at the same time then, because you can get the prisons from the pass, your most ideal way of doing so, but having a mythic skin as the end reward, made best by the fact you can earn more customization options for the skin as you go, is so much better than earning up the currency to just buy the skin and all this customization. Am I missing something? Maybe some people might like the idea of slowly saving up the currency through the season, but the prisons being an earnable thing in the battle pass feels a little lazy when there could be other rewards instead. In all fairness, the Battle Pass content being second rate to the shop has never been subtle. I don't think Activision Blizzard knows the meaning of the word, so it is what it is. This is also the season where new heroes became free for everybody immediately. Before, you had to get to a certain level of the Battle Pass to be able to play as them, a change I have no quarrels with, because imagine you're excited for the new hero, you really want to play them, but you can't until you reach tier 5 of the paid tier in the Battle Pass, or like tier 45 in the free tier. Sure, it was incentive to play the game, but I think a new hero is incentive enough, so the extra set felt wholly unnecessary. As I mentioned way earlier at this point, Season 10 started the tradition of allowing you to earn Overwatch coins through the pass, and on the free tier of it no less. And yes, only 600 a season, but that's just how it is. And for the way Activision Blizzard are, I don't see that number increasing, so any amount is appreciated, I guess. The playtest for the new Clash mode took place here, and we should try out the new Hanaroka map. Again, this is a practice I have mentioned being wholeheartedly for. Getting feedback from a limited time test to help improve and tweak aspects of the game mode or hero, as opposed to just throwing it or them at us suddenly and then make changes later. It's good. I mean sure, they'll still buff all the Earth heroes in future patches, usually ones that take place 2 weeks after a hero goes properly live, but you get what I'm saying, I'm sure. I have faith in you, dear one. The new game mode we got for Season 10 was a tie with the season's theme, which honestly feels redundant to say at this point, but I'm sunk cost fallacy here in multiple ways, so just excuse the fact. Anyway, this mode was called Overwatch, which ran from April 23rd, 2024 to May 13th, 2024, with the idea being various heroes from Overwatch and Talon reimagined as if they were on the opposite side in an alternative universe. The alternative universe idea is always a fun one to imagine, and Overwatch finally getting around to it was bound to be good. Spoilers, it was. I should say, I'm going to completely disregard my personal feelings towards this mode on this one occasion because I think I just got super unlucky for a period and couldn't even buy a win in this game mode, but despite that, it's hard to have any actual noteworthy negative feelings towards it because it was more than that. As mentioned, the mode was centered around certain heroes being reimagined, and that included their abilities. I want to go over a couple of examples. So to start, Doomfist was reimagined as Strike Commander Ogundimu. My apologies for butchering that. Replaces Soldier 76, or rather Jack Marston, as Overwatch's Strike Commander, and his abilities included being able to deploy an 800 health shield when using his Power Block ability, granting overhealth, that's the green health you can see, to himself and nearby allies, and his ultimate, Meteor Strike, granted nearby allies 300 overhealth upon landing. To note, overhealth grants 50% less ultimate charge gained for enemies until they can get through it, but it will decay, disappear, over time. All abilities still perform the same way, like Power Block empowering the Doomfist after blocking a certain amount of damage, they just had a few extra aspects to them. And second, we have Mercy, reimagined as Vengeance. Get it? Because Vengeance is the opposite of what Mercy is. I told you, it was a look into the dev's sick and twisted minds. Vengeance is also the name of the mythic we got for Mercy this season. Anyway, Mercy's Caduceus staff would now damage nearby enemies while damage boosting allies with the blue beam. Her resurrect ability would now explode either a fallen ally or enemy, greatly damaging any enemy nearby, and her ultimate, Valkyrie, was now Revenge, which gave Mercy the ability to shoot powerful rockets from her staff, but also prevented her from using the staff's normal capabilities, healing and damage boosting. I only mentioned Doomfist and Mercy in particular because they were kind of the poster characters of the Overwatch event. And I don't know if it can be overstated enough just how beloved of an idea this was in the community, including from myself. It was just so cool to see, and more importantly, it really showed that devs will forever actually be able to give a damn about the game, despite what some naysayers may think about their capabilities. When given a chance, Team 4 will always hit it out of the park, and man, it was just magical. Now, I'm going to fanboy a little more. This mode, event, and vibes were just awesome to experience. How by the fact I was extremely high in the season because of the likes of Mercy getting the Mythic skin and Vengeance inclusion, who I will get into more detail later. Overwatch was incredible to be there for as a long time Overwatch fan. Sure, I may not have won much of the actual game mode and got a little demoralised because of it, but screw that, man. Season 10 was awesome. Oh, right, the Porsche collab. Yeah, so for the collab in Season 10, we got one with Porsche, the car brand. And to say this one was just kind of bad would be more of an objective statement, I feel. It lacked whimsy, honestly. Think about it. In previous seasons, we got collabs with One Punch Man, Diablo, The Seraphim, and Cowboy Bebop, and in here it's just overt product placement of a car brand. Right, sure, you can argue though the Seraphim collab is on a similar level to the Porsche one because it's essentially the same kind of thing, a collab with a real life non-fictional thing, but the Seraphim collab at least had immaculate vibes, while this was just a lame ass car brand ad. The skins we got were for Diva and Farah, and they're just kind of whatever to me. These can be bought in the shop from time to time for prices. Short to the point, this was just a boring collab that made no sense and came out of nowhere and lacked the kind of whimsical imagination and overall creativity Overwatch prides itself on. Bit of a down note for Season 10, especially with how I was treating it as peak, but even peak can have its issues sometimes. There is no peak if there's no mountain to climb first, you know. Season 11, we're almost there, baby. It's ran from June 20th to August 20th, starting mid-Pride month. So, we finally got a new push map in Runesapi, a Calamity Empress Mythic for Ashe, as well as the first instance of a Mythic weapon for Reinhardt, 2 new Hero Mastery courses for Kirk and Soldier 76, a new event in celebrating all heroes, and 2 returning events, being the Summer Games, but not before the return of the BCOF charity event for the first time since 2018. Along with those things, there was also the collaboration with Transformers. Yep, Transformers. I'll get to it. It should be noted that the BCRF charity event was also part of the Celebrating All Heroes event, similar to the Community Crafted event, both under the same banner. First though, to cover what the Celebrating All Heroes thing actually means, this wasn't a reference to Pride Month with the season starting mid-Pride Month, though in some ways, considering a large portion of the Overwatch community and what Overwatch stands for, you can argue that it actually was, and yeah, you'd be based for thinking that. As I was supposed to be saying, Celebrating All Heroes was in, well, celebration of Overwatch's player base, having crossed 100 million total players. You can make arguments about how many of those players are unique and how many actually play on a regular basis, but that's neither here nor there, honestly, and that's not me being dismissive of those points, it's just a case of that data not being public in a lot of cases. Yes, I know Steam shows player numbers, but that's just on Steam. I can guarantee you that most people playing Overwatch play through Battle.net, the original launcher for Overwatch before it also became playable on Steam on August 10th, 2003. I guess I should have mentioned that in the Season 6 session, oh well, who cares. But yeah, the number is to be celebrated. I still remember the celebration around when Overwatch crossed 10 million players way back in the day, and To think it's now crossed 10 times that amount is genuinely insane. Like, that's about the population of the Philippines. This data is from 2018, so it's definitely outdated by this point, but nevertheless. So this event ran from June 20th to July 9th, and a few days into it, we got the return of the Breast Cancer Research Foundation charity event for the first time since 2018, as stated prior. It needn't be said, but this is a wonderful little event yet again. Breast cancer is the most common form of cancer in women, but anyone can get it. And common sense dictates that with the research done into such an awful disease, the more chance there is to help people suffering with it to survive or even eradicate it entirely. The thought of eliminating all cancers may not seem realistic to a lot of people, given how much of an overwhelming force cancer is in so many lives. Too many lives for that matter, but if there's even the slimmest of chances, I don't see a reason not to pursue it. And yeah, having this little charity event return once more with a new gorgeous variant of your already beautiful pink skin for Mercy was truly wonderful. 100% of the profits made from the skins was and has been donated to the BCRF, and seeing as last time around $30 million was donated, I can see an equal or even a higher amount being donated this time around, especially if Blizzard wants to match the donations or at least add to them. And that's wonderful. Everyone's donation is sure to help, whether it be one person or many, it's invaluable. Obviously, I could not buy the new Rose Gold skin, if just for the cause alone, but it is also a genuinely pretty looking skin, even if it's just a variant of an already existing one. But that doesn't matter, I think it's beautiful, so there you go. Rose Gold's actually the only time I spent money on a skin in this game, but that high horse comment is not at all important in this context. I just thought it was worth mentioning to get across how positive I feel about the event. To talk about something a little negative surrounding this event, when the original Pink Mercy skin was set to return with the event, a number of people started crying over the fact because it was no longer valuable, or made the skin less special because it wasn't a one-time thing. Guys, you're gatekeeping a charity skin. A skin that, if it did return in this type of capacity, was going to do nothing but good. If it were to return as just a standard shop item, then sure, I can understand getting upset about it. Hell, I would too as someone who originally owned it, but I'd be furious on the basis of it potentially not being for charity again. But like, that didn't happen? Some people, man, they've really got to think about their lives. Well anyway, besides that, it was a wonderful event yet again, all for a wonderful cause. There are a couple links for support for the American Cancer Society, ACS, and Cancer Research UK if you or someone close to you is suffering from cancer in the source legend archive I typically link in the description of these big videos, but they'll also just be in the description below the video as well. If you need help, don't be scared to ask for it. There are always people willing to help and make things easier. No one should suffer from cancer alone. Following the BCRF event, or rather 5 days after it started, we then got the Community Crafted mini event, an event that brought a game mode with it that had heroes' abilities changed or tweaked by popular members of the Overwatch community, aka the people who think they're better at game design than the actual devs. I kid. don't take that seriously. This was actually pretty neat. 4 creators were involved in making changes: Emong, who balanced the tank heroes, Custer and TQQ, balancing the projectile-based damage heroes and the hitscan-based heroes respectively, and SK, who balanced the support heroes. There are way too many changes to talk about here, so I'll just pick out a few, let's say one per each role. For tank, Reinhardt had been changed so his movement speed would steadily increase as his battlefield lost health, as well as connecting with fire strikes was also granted movement speed buff, and his charge reduced damage taken while in the animation, very similar to how Mauna's overrun ability works. For damage, Tracer had her base health decreased by 25 down to 150, or rather back to 150 before the health buffs in Season 9, along with the spread of her pulse pistols being increased, her blink and recoil abilities having a decreased cooldown time, a weird change considering how well a lot of players can usually cycle those out, but go off I guess. And finally, the movement speed of her pulse bomb ultimate was increased, making it easier to land I found. I have a feeling TQQ is a trace main or something, I don't know, just a hunch. And for support, Anna had her bionic rifle reload speed decreased, a very much like change from yours truly. Like, it was so weird to have such a flashy reload speed at first, but damn was it good. She had Baptiste's Exo Boots passive given to her, where when she crouched for a short period, she could high jump, another change I very much appreciated, especially on a hero like Anna who isn't exactly mobile. Correct, that makes sense for a sniper style character, but still. Honestly, the mini event was super fun getting to try out all these changes that popular members of the community got to put together. Seriously, having the community involved in such a way similar to what happened with the Talantis map back in Season 4, but to a greater extent here, creates a greater sense of community. Not to sound redundant in my words, but you get what I'm trying to say. I would really like to see something like this happen again. It really made Overwatch feel fresh, like with what Overwatch did for it, but I suppose that's always been the intention of these limited time game modes, even if some are better than others. Or you know what, never mind. Starting July 9th and ending on July 22nd, Overwatch collabed with Transformers. Honestly, you could have run this alongside the Porsche collab to be funny if you know what I'm getting at, but regardless, this was a pretty awesome collab, especially after the Porsche one, because no matter who you are, I'm sure the concept of Transformers alone is peak media. Giant robots fighting that can turn into various things at will? Sign me the f*** up! Of course, I say that despite not having too much invested in the series, but I loved it as a kid, damn it, like any sane kid would. I'm straying a little from the original topic here, so to get back on track, this collab was for the purpose of promoting the then upcoming Transformers 1 movie, a potential revitalization for the IP, and gave skins of the 4 main cast, Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, and Kree. It's RC, you idiot! To Reinhardt, Ramatra, Bastion, and Iliari, respectively. Goes without saying, but Bastion was such an obvious choice for this one, so I'm glad they actually gave him one of the skins and not like another hero or whatever. Same case for Ramatra too, though not so for Reinhardt and Iliari, but Reinhardt's Optimus Prime skin is so f***ing cool, and Iliari finally getting something worthwhile again was neat. Even if Vivarium Echo would have made more sense just for the whole being a robot thing. Zenyatta too, now that I actually think about it, but I don't know, I can't really see him cosplaying Optimus Prime. Being real, given the theme of the season, Super Mega Ultrawatch, which was a less than subtle parody of Ultraman, the iconic Japanese kaiju fighting superhero, I feel like trying to actually get the collab with Ultraman would have been the obvious move, or even Power Rangers at the very least, given Ash's Mythic also being a less than subtle inspiration of the iconic Green Repulsor villain, but collabs are worked out well in advance, I'm sure, so it is what it is. Transformers is still damn cool though. And of course, like with Venture and Mauna prior towards the end of the season, we got a playtest for the newest support hero, Juno. And finally, I can't believe it's taken this long, almost some number of pages worth, I don't know at this point, we're into Season 12. We're only 2 pages out from the left of the Pokemon Black and White 2 script. Arceus, save me. To be upfront, there's not too much I can say about Season 12, opinion-wise, at the time of writing this part, because we're only a few days into the season, with it having started on August 20th, 2024, and supposedly set to end on October 15th, 2024. But as for what it's given us so far, we got Juno for real, the Anubis Mythic for Reaper, as well as the Clash mode finally going live for real with Hanover running a brand new thread of Anubis map, all except Juno I went over towards the beginning. We also got 2 new hero mastery courses for Xayah and Farah, and there's set to be a collab with World of Warcraft later on, as well as a new mythic weapon for Anna and the return of the Overwatch anniversary event. There was also a rework for the player avoid list, letting you avoid up to 10 players at a time now, instead of just 3. And you can also now permanently pin players to your avoid list, but only 3. So choose wisely, you must, young Padawan. That wasn't even close. Wow, a Star Wars reference from me. Gotta expect the unexpected, I guess. But if you expect the unexpected, doesn't that make... I'm sorry, I won't do that. Writing for content like this that's liable to change is always a tricky one for me, because I hate having my videos outdated for as much as a meme it's kind of sort of become on this channel, but it cannot be helped sometimes, especially with how long videos this size can take, only made easier by my tendency to hyperfocus and being unemployed. Oh, man. Oh yeah, there was also the mid-year rank reset because the new system started in February, so the closest time they could do it to mid-year for a fresh start was in mid-August for the new season. Force you to sit through placement matches again that don't mean a goddamn thing in the long run, or to determine your new starting point, aka page 1 of the sequel to Suffering. One last thing, there's also going to be skins given out through Xbox Game Pass Ultimate perks, and considering some of the skins here, that's pretty insane to just get them for free. Couple Reinhardt and Cloak Life Weaver stick out the most to me because in the case of Reinhardt, the skin is an exact feeling of what it was like to play the hero for the longest time. And in the case of Life Weaver, his Cloak skin is easily one of the best shop skins I've seen yet in Overwatch 2. I'm serious. Sucks to be a PlayStation player though. I guess that's what you get for buying a console with no games. I'm sorry. That joke's way overdone. You do legitimately have a few exclusives I would love to play sometime in all fairness. Very last minute addition here, the World of Warcraft collab skins got revealed recently, and I gotta say, they're all pretty fire, especially Reinhardt as the Lich King. But Reinhardt having banger skins is nothing new. But let's not forget Sylvanas Widowmaker and Thralls and Yata, they're also pretty clean. The Torp one, I'm not a huge fan of however, as it's just a reskin of his Maggie one that was released in like 2018. Regardless of that one negative though, these collab skins are pretty nice overall, even if I have no major connection with World of Warcraft, besides already knowing a few of the characters. This video is so long man, but we gotta keep going, If we stop, we don't improve, we don't evolve, we become stagnant. Once again, my apologies for that going on so long. There was just a lot I wanted to talk about, or at least highlight. But, you know what that means? Yes! Finally! We get to talk about the new heroes! God, I've been looking forward to this so much, so let me talk to you! When I say new heroes are the thing a majority of players look forward to so much, I really mean that, and that's always been the case. After all, with a game like Overwatch where the fun of it is playing characters that all have different abilities and the scenarios you can experience with them, it makes sense why new characters being added over time are always a joy. even if you may not be too interested in the hero's role. Just having a new character present at all adds a lot and makes things feel fresh and exciting. Well, some of them. Overwatch 2 has a frequent hero release schedule, with the devs giving us a new hero every other season. The exceptions to the schedule being the 3 heroes we got in Season 1 for the game's release, and then Rematch in Season 2, which started the trend we can see today. As for the variety of new heroes, as in their roles, it's been somewhat inconsistent. It's gone, in terms of reveals, damage, tank, support, tank, support, support, tank, damage, support, and what I will assume to be tank again for Season 14. In other words, we've had 2 damage heroes, 3 tank heroes, and 4 support heroes. That graphic I've hopefully put together is a little damning, huh? There's only been 2 damage heroes, Sojourn and Venture, since the release of Overwatch, or rather, in the 731 days by the time the 2nd anniversary rolls around, and more importantly, when this video goes up. I can't kid, but the lack of focus on the damage roll does stick out like a sore thumb. But there's an easy explanation for that I'm sure I've mentioned already, but I don't remember at this point. There are just so many words in this video. It's the fact that there's always been a disparity between the roles, with damage always having way more heroes than the other 2. Allow me to put this into perspective. The last hero we got for Overwatch 1 was Echo for the damage role, bringing the total to 17 heroes, while tank and support had 9 and 7 respectively, so yeah, it makes sense why they've been trying to prioritise both roles since then in order to have a semi-level playing field when it comes to variety of choice. Hell, they even reworked Doomfist to be a tank hero because the damage roll has too much. Okay, I know that's probably not the reason, it's more because Doomfist was a hero of all time when he was on the damage roll. We're still going to get new damage heroes obviously. In fact, I think the release schedule going forward might be damage support tank, as it is going to be this year, but they can always change it up again by releasing more than one of the same role like they did in 2023, or just switch it around like support, damage and then tank or whatever. However, I think for the sake of not making damage heroes feel like they are not left out, the role was 16 heroes, mind you. They could never expect a fraction of the pain support players went through in Overwatch 1. I think having damage be the first in that schedule is a good way to keep everyone happy. I mean hell, support even gets damage heroes these days, so they really are keeping everyone happy. You think I'm playing with that, but I don't always just talk out my ass, only sometimes. Well, in light of that, I thought it'd be fun to go over all the new heroes again, in order to reveal in the case of Season 1, just in not as much detail as my hero guides, because that'd extend the video by way too much, and it just wouldn't fit here in terms of format. I've had the want to remake the hero guides with current information and or corrections, but that idea has never gotten further than just being on the table because it's not my preferred type of video to make. It's usually my go-to whenever I'm maybe considering shelving a series in favour of others, and I hate dragging my friends into them so often to get the clean ability demonstrations because I feel like I'm wasting their time even if they always tell me otherwise. Should be said as well, I've even considered making a lengthy hero guide compilation for the legacy heroes, every hero from Overwatch 1, but for the same reasons it's never gotten further than just an idea. Nevertheless, shall we begin with talking about Sojourn? Just before that, however, I want to note that each role has its own unique passive ability, sometimes adding on to other passives a hero might have. For tank they have reduced knockback and receive reduced critical damage, headshot damage mostly, and generate less ultimate charge when getting healed or damage boosted. For damage, the passive reduces the healing given to the target for a few seconds when hit, and for support, they auto regenerate health quicker than the other 2 roles. Damn, I got shit to say about Sojourn. Okay, so as previously stated, Sojourn was released in Season 1 with the release of Overwatch 2, and having Sojourn be one of the immediate new heroes was an amazing move because we had known about Sojourn for years at this point. In fact, we've known about her as far back as the Recall animation short, where she appears as one of the old members of Overwatch that Winston was looking through. However, we didn't get too much of her until about the Storm Rising game mode of Overwatch 1 Archives event in like 2019, where she was our guide for the mission. Either way though, it was cool to finally get another hero from the in-universe old days of Overwatch for the playable cast. The last time that happened being with Anna back in 2016, the first new hero release for Overwatch. It's something a lot of people clamour for often, still speculating on who else could possibly see in the future. Character wise, she's great, but gameplay wise, oh my god, she's so boring. Alright, well, one step at a time here. Maybe I should talk about how she actually plays first. Sojourn wields a railgun, and like most other railguns in other games I assume, this one rapidly shoots small projectiles with a primary fire that generates charge for the secondary fire, powering up, which is a single powerful hitscan shot so long as you have at least one little charge feasible on the UI. And she has 2 main abilities with 1 ultimate ability, which I don't think I'll specify that again because every hero has 1 ability unless you want to be funny and bring up Echo and how her ultimate works, but that's not the point. Regardless, Sojourn's 2 main abilities are Power Slide, allowing Sojourn to quickly slide forward in the direction she's facing, allowing you to to escape precarious situations or better reposition yourself, especially with how it can either be cancelled into a high jump, that, or what will happen at the end of the animation, and Disruptor Shot, an area effect type ability that will slow down enemies slightly and slowly drain their health if they're caught in it. Think of that second one like a less powerful version of Zarya's Graviton Surge Ultimate. A loose comparison I guess, but comparisons are a great way to get a point across, so back off. I'm sorry, come back, I won't yell at you again. And as for Sojourn's ultimate ability, that's Overclock. This is basically a constant barrage of secondary fire for a limited time without how to charge up the shots for the max power, with the added effect of piercing enemies, meaning you can potentially foul enemies like dominoes. Sojourn is a very potent hero in the right hands that can be downright annoying to deal with most of the time, inherently because of how she works and then the playstyle that's indirectly encouraged with her. So, the charge of secondary fire being gained from landing primary fire shots, right? Do you know what the best way of doing this is? Shoot the tank. Farm the tank for charge and then basically one shot with a headshot, all the poor support heroes just doing their job. Yes, sure, it's not necessarily a one shot, and on top of that, it has to be a headshot, but even without the headshot damage multiplier, landing a body shot still does an insane amount of damage. So, do you know what it boils down to? Hold down left click or right trigger, whatever, the tank for a few seconds, then right click the head to damage the support heroes, rinse, repeat, and maybe use the power slide to get out of there after you off everyone else. This might sound fun, a nice breezy walk through a field, but in my opinion, it's incredibly boring because it's the same thing each time. And yes, boring to play against, boring to play, it's the whole thing. Call me salty for having this opinion because I come across players who haven't showered even after my tutorial earlier, but yeah, I am salty, I hate this hero. It's made increasingly worse when you're playing tank because you just know you're partly responsible for the rest of your team just getting picked off by some soldier in the backlines that none of you can deal with because you probably don't have a hero who has the same kind of mobility to keep up with Sojourn, and by the way, you're playing tank, so you definitely won't. I guess D.Va's a good counter in that regard with defense matrix and boosters, but as soon as your mech's gone, you know what time it is, and it's getting hit by the fully charged secondary fire she's getting from demeching you. Even then, you're not allowed to peel to go after the pocket and Sojourn because you gotta be with your team. Otherwise, the enemy tank or other damage hero that is probably just as bad to deal with and played by someone who's just as sweaty will pick off your team with ease. Cool Sojourn's gameplay style, 5D chess or whatever, but that's copium for how shallow her playstyle has become in recent times. We're off to a great start, well, it's not all doom and gloom to be fair, I just have strong feelings towards Sojourn. To clarify, towards how she plays, not the actual hero, I think she's kinda cool otherwise. I also just love her Form War skin, it's incredibly pretty. Her Water Warrior skin is damn cool too, despite its price. It's a wonder she hasn't got a mythic skin yet, seeing as the next two heroes both have got one. So being a part of the original 3, I thought would guarantee her one sooner, but I feel like a mythic skin might increase her pick rate even more, and I don't know if my blood pressure would be able to handle that. Well hey, at least her long overdue cinematic we got in Season 6 Invasion was pretty nice. I will make it so Murphy gets all the parts she deserves, I promise you that. On to the second hero revealed prior to release, Jungle Queen for the tank role. Like Sojourn, we've seen Jungle Queen on lore before, mostly on posters throughout Jungle Town, as well as over the speaker you can hear when the payload gets to the second point, ever since its release in 2017. She even got her own animated short a little earlier in the year, Wastelander, one that's, I'm not a huge fan of, but it is still good in its own right, giving us reason to care about the upcoming hero for the, at the time, upcoming sequel, which is the very least I can ask of any hero animated short, and finally give us a proper look at this character we've known about for so long. Thanks to the animated short and just in general, Jungle Queen was another much anticipated hero, so another good way of starting off the brand new roster. Being off the tank role in Overwatch 2, Queen is definitely an experience to play, but as for what consists of her kit, to start, she has a passive ability called Adrenaline Rush, which heals Queen upon inflicting wounds on enemies which can be inflicted by making contact with her 4 abilities, including her ultimate. She uses a scattergun, which is kind of a long-range shotgun if that makes any sense, but compared to Sojourn's railgun, there's nothing else to talk about with this one. So, moving on to her first ability, Jagged Blade. This is an arcing projectile that Queen just yeets across the battlefield that she can call back at will, and if it hits anyone, it will not only inflict a wound, but will also bring the enemy with it a short distance when it's called back. Calling it back can also inflict wounds if it passes through any enemies in its path, allowing for some strategic plays with it, like delayed demons when the enemy thinks they're safe. I remember in my hero guide for Jungle Queen that I compared the Jagged Blade to Thor's Stormbreaker because it's a slightly better comparison than Mjolnir, and to be fair, to this day, I don't think I was too far off with that, and because of that, as a fan of Marvel, to some extent, it feels all the more satisfying to land. I also made the head-ass statement that heroes had different weight classes, like in Mario Kart, featherweight, medium weight, and heavyweight, that would affect how far they're pulled with a Jagged Blade, but this is not the case and never was the case, and only tank heroes have a different pullback. Again, I only talk out my ass sometimes. The blade itself even has a passive of its own, where when the basic melee is used, if the blade is in hand, it will inflict another wound. Her second ability is Commanding Shout. After screaming her lungs out with a war cry, she gets over half and increased movement speed for 5 seconds, while also granting the same effects to nearby allies, but with less over half and only for 3 seconds. Commanding Shout can be a lifesaver sometimes. It's kind of like a second chance. If your health drops low, just scream and suddenly you're ready to go again. Queen's third ability is Carnage. Carnage is the name of the axe she carries on her back, and she'll swing at the enemy to do a quick burst of damage, inflicting another wound when contact is made. Carnage has to be one of the most intensely satisfying abilities to utilize, because here's the thing, depending on how many enemies you hit in one swing of Carnage, this will reduce the cooldown by a couple of seconds for each target, so it's possible to use the ability multiple times in a row without cooldown, which I feel really encourages you to get in the enemy's face and show them who's boss and make them regret challenging you. Plus, it's a good way to discourage the enemy team from grouping up constantly, if even momentarily, because, well, as a challenge you'll be swinging way too frequently from recovering from the damage dealt, making you further insufferable by the amount of self-healing from all the wounds inflicted. To be fair, for a swing that has a long wind-up time and feels like there's a ton of force behind the swing, it surprisingly doesn't do as much as you'd expect, but imagine a 300 damage swing that could happen one after the other. Yeah, now you get it. And finally, we have her ultimate, Rampage. This is yet another amazingly satisfying ability to pull off, having Queen charge forward, inflicting wounds on the ones she passes through, and prevents them from receiving healing for a short period by inflicting the anti-heal effect that was only previously seen with Anna's Byronade ability. It also provides the highest healing from wounds inflicted. It's a lot of fun to just run through a herd of enemies all at once and then follow up with Carnage, for example, which is usually enough to finish teamfights, though this is massively countered by one of the abilities in the next hero. I've mentioned the wounds a lot here, huh? Well, what if I told you can inflict multiple wounds at once? So, for example, a wound from Carnage and a wound from Rampage are all different and have their effects stacked, so yeah, pretty insane, right? I've heard of self-sustaining, but this is ridiculous. I'm joking, but Junker Queen is super fun to play. Though, admittedly, it's always an exhausting experience for 2 reasons. One, for me anyway, my heart rate goes through the roof when I'm playing her because my adrenaline is running overtime to make her work. Fitting, I guess, given her adrenaline rush passive, but I swear, half the time, I'm throwing everything I have at the wall to make the best I can of this situation, and often, all I get in return is an elevated heart rate. That's not me saying the hero doesn't work, no. Junker Queen works and can do extremely well in the right situations. It's just something that tends to happen whenever I play her. Though to be fair, this leads into the second point actually. That's just how playing tank is in general. Feeling like you have to outperform the entire enemy team just to make the role work because you are enemy number 1. And that inevitably leads to an exhausting experience because you also have to outperform your own team. Otherwise, it's your fault if you lose, and it's nothing to do with you if you win. So, it's bragging rights that only you can brag to yourself about. It gets worse because besides suffering constantly, playing tank has become counter-watch. Pick the tank that counters the enemy tank, wait for the enemy to pick one that counters yours, then pick one that now counters theirs, and so on and so forth. It's such a lame way to play the role because what used to be strategizing with picking counters and such, has now become a game of saying my turn every other fight. So it's more suffering. Not to mention the constant war between defenders of the 5v5 and 6v6 formats, a highly controversial change that Overwatch 2 implemented. One that I've stressed makes tanks' lives a living hell, so this debate usually surrounds tank players, but let me enlighten those who want to return to 6v6 but didn't experience what it was like in Overwatch 1. You don't want this. Talk about trying out the 6v6 format again has been going around, with something slated to happen in Season 13, but I assure you, the millisecond these folk get a taste of the double shield meta or even the godforsaken ghost meta, it's over. Granted, maybe it's worth a try just to shut them up, but honestly, there's little winning either way. It's either have a merciless existence as a tank, or maybe an optimal one when the dev team wants to throw you a bone, but still be the punching bag of both teams, or be subjected to both of the worst metas possible again for the other roles, where no one gets to have fun. But goddamn, sometimes I want it to be that way. You sound like you're having a bad time. The more I think about it, maybe I do want to return to those days, you know? And it's all because of tanks? And it's all because of tanks. Well, tanks in the best place it's ever been right now in Overwatch 2, right? That's true, but it'll never be like how it was. During tanks with your buddy. Feel like you're unstoppable. Right? Yeah. I thought so. Okay, so moving on to Kyoko now. She was the first brand new hero for Overwatch 2. A nice little way to round off the first lot of new heroes by having two we've seen before through lore and whatever, and then a completely new one that, while still having some lore connection to existing heroes, which in Kyoko's case is stupidly confusing, like, explain to me how Kyoko, who is 21, grew up alongside Hunter and Genji. You see the problem here? I guess maybe she did in the loosest terms, like she grew up around them for a few years or something when she was just a kid. That's the only explanation I got for that. That's an argument for the lore theorists out there, and I'm not a qualified one, so it's none of my business. Of course, that's not to say I don't care about Overwatch's lore, but that's a topic for later. Despite the inconsistency in that one aspect, everything else around here is fantastic. Need I mention her cinematic? Like, honestly, it's top 3 Overwatch cinematics for me. Probably my second favourite actually, first being The Last Bastion and third being Honor and Glory. And to get into what I've deemed an argument point in my notes, for those who think the animated shorts peaked at Dragons and went downhill afterwards, well, tell me you haven't formed a personality in the past 6 years. I love Dragons too. It's an amazing animated short, truly, but it's always put on this pedestal as the absolute peak of entertainment, and sort of the go-to for people to then dump on the future animated shorts that they have most likely not even seen once, as well as to reignite the bandwagon of shitting on Overwatch because that's just what's cool to do and gets you the ever so valuable internet points. Like, dude, we get it, you don't have a personality beyond making fun of Overwatch. Now leave, you'll save us both of the time. Don't take that as me dismissing all criticism for Overwatch, it's just a trend I've noticed and wanted to address because, to get back on track, Kiriko, as the animated short's called, is truly magical. I've heard how it reignited the love for Overwatch for many players who were approaching their limits, per se. And yeah, it's beautiful. Kiriko is an absolute ball of sunshine, and the short gets its moments to have a slight edge to it, and it goes without saying, but the production quality is so damn high on this one. Granted, all the shorts are, that's partly what makes them such an attraction, but it feels more so here because this was a short that really set in stone that the team behind Overwatch still got it. They still had that sauce, I guess you could say. Sure, her personality shown in the short is different to in-game where she's more silver-tongued and sassy, I suppose, but TBH, either one works for me, I'm not complaining. Is it any wonder why Kiriko has become Overwatch's new Golden Girl? A fact that many certainly have opinions about, but not yet. Soon. Soon. Right, want to talk about her kit now? While she may be in the support role, goddamn can she throw hands when it comes to it. A sentence I'm sure won't be repeated for any other hero in this section. Kiriko has 3 main abilities, including her ult and her own passive. Though it's not unique to her, shared with both Genji and Hanzo, she can wall climb, which is great for getting to higher grounds in no time and just general repositioning. Like Soldier and Prior, Kiriko has a primary and secondary fire. Her primary fire are the healing of fooders. Projectiles have a slight element of tracking to them that you float, I guess, over to her allies to heal them and will actually reload on their own. Unlike her secondary, kunais, projectiles which can do serious damage when headshotting, having a higher multiplier than normal, times 3 instead of times 2. I think it's worth noting I originally mistook the primary and secondary fires the opposite way around when I wrote the last paragraph, thinking the kunais were the primary for example, because I have the kunais bound to left click and the Ophones bound to right click because that just makes way more sense to my brain. There's that for you, it's been so long I forgot it wasn't that way. Kiri's first ability is Swift Step, a teleport ability that can allow for Kiri to get to faraway teammates in trouble in an instant, also escape bad situations you may or may not have gotten yourself into, but let's be real, you're more than likely end up in those situations after using it. I know it's a common occurrence for me anyway. Next is her Protection Suzu, a little lantern thing that grants brief invulnerability and does do a small burst of healing as well. To say this ability has lived in the mind of many a player rent-free for the wrong reasons for a long time would be, well, it'd be true. See, not only does it grant that brief invulnerability, but it also gets rid of most negative effects. The most common of which being stuff like anti-healing from Ana's Bionade or Junqueen's Rampage, but also burning effects from Ash's Dynamite, Torbjorn's Multicore, and a hero we'll get to is Primary Fire. It's a very annoying ability to run into because it exists solely as a get out of jail free card for bad positioning and whatever, but in all fairness, with stuff the tank role usually has to put up with in the 5v5 format, it makes it easier for them to just exist, so it makes sense why they created such an ability in the first place, and besides, when playing carry, it feels great to time the Suzu correctly with certain abilities and ults, like with Reinhardt Shadow when Suzu can only save allies before they go to the ground. Honestly, it can be played around easy enough with some basic strategizing, like basing out the Suzu yourself or getting another teammate to do it, so it has its counters, but not in the traditional sense really. Either way though, damn good burst ability with a cool sound effect. Kiriko's third ability is her ultimate, Kitsune Rush. Among my friends, we often refer to Kitsune Rush as Gates, a shorter version of Gates the Hell that I coined in my Kiriko guide. Okay, I don't think I coined it per se, but it's common verbiage among my friends now, so that's something. And I call it Gates because, yeah, Gates the Hell is a very appropriate name for it because for allies in the small corridor, they'll have a 50% increase to their rate of fire and reload times. The former being increased obviously meaning high damage output. duh. This ultimate though is enough to end most team fights due to how overwhelming the effects can be on the enemy team. Considering Rush is one of those ultimates for me that I feel incredibly powerful using, which is always a sign of a well-designed ultimate, an ability that should be the end to a fight, or at least have a big enough impact to change the tides. Since you may be curious, a couple others include Sigma's Graphitic Flux, and the next hero's ult, Annihilation. Kiriko is often an essential part of the team thanks to the majority of her kit, especially her Suzu, or Cleanse as it's more commonly referred to, and it's really fun overall because of her mobility. I've really come to playing Kiri a lot in recent times, mostly because my duos are Roadhog main and they crumble to dust without the Suzu due to getting antis all the time, leading me referring to the role as Kiri Jail. Though honestly, because of her latest support, I don't enjoy Kiri as much as I used to because her mobility feels extremely limited in comparison, which I realise is an insane statement given she can teleport halfway across the map, but that's how it is now, though that's not to say I don't still enjoy playing her when I need to, despite the fact it always takes me a little to get my crap together with her for whatever reason. Moving on now from the original trio, Ramatra is the next hero and is another addition to the tank role. Right out of the gate, I love Ramatra, he's so damn cool. He's actually a returning hero of sorts in terms similar to Sojourn and Jungle Queen, where we actually had seen him prior, first appearing in the end cutscenes of Storm Rising game mode. Of course, we had no idea who the character was at the time, and I think the tease ties between Talon alongside the evil organization Overwatch's lore and Ramatra's alliance Null Sector have long since been dropped, but you know, Joe, that's for later, even if the specific topic may not be. Either way though, this dude is awesome. He's got such an intimidating presence about him, and to have finally had a new genuine villain hero again after so long, the last time being with Doomfist in 2017, was so cool.
Guys,
By the way, before you press me about Sigma in 2019, his situation is kind of unique, more being manipulated by Talon and being taken advantage of because of his multiple personalities caused by the incidents shown in his own origin story. Regardless, presentation-wise, Ramatra is perfect, and in terms of gameplay, he's become one of my main tanks to play, replacing Reinhardt as my primary brawler tank, though of course, as a tank hero, that's a whole other kind of worms entirely. Never mind that though, let's ignore our demons for a second and just get right into his kit. So to start, Ram wields the Void Accelerator for his Prime Fire, a staff thing that fires extreme projectiles that have no fall-off damage whatsoever. Yeah, you heard that right. You could be the other side of the map and still be doing the same amount of damage you would be doing up close. To be fair though, each type projectile only does a tiny amount of damage, appropriate enough, so it's more than fair enough way of balancing it. For his first ability, that's the Void Barrier, a shield you can place wherever you choose and it stays put, similar to Sigma's barrier in a way, but without the ability to reposition it after it's placed and only for a limited amount of time. Well, I mean you can reposition it, but you have to wait for the cooldown, which is how it works with Sigma's, whatever, you get the point. It's super convenient honestly, because it's got pretty generous cast range, so you can use it to protect allies for a distance within an instant, but hands down. Void Barrier is really good for cycling in and out with Ramatra's second ability, Nemesis Form. Nemesis Form is super interesting because it allows Ramatra to assume an entirely different playstyle, making him the first dual style hero. The base form of Ramatra, known as the Omnic form, is more of a defensive playstyle, while the titular Nemesis form is the more offensive playstyle, but both still have their own forms of offense and defense. Nemesis form turns Ramatra into a hulking behemoth, throwing massive punches with the pummel primary fire that is swapped with the Void Accelerator, almost as if you're suddenly playing Punch Out, and it often ends up looking and feeling a lot like this. So note, Pummel also pierces shields as it goes through them, so no need to worry if the enemy tank or Brigitte puts a shield in your face. When I said cycling the Void Barrier in and out with this ability is great, I meant that, because you can block one in the Big Void mode, correct with easy for that one, which takes the place of the Void Barrier while in the form, reducing incoming damage by a huge amount, and it goes without saying, it's also great for protecting your own teammates. Sure, the Void Barrier serves the same purpose, but you can move while blocking, albeit with a large movement speed reduction, so being able to reposition slightly is invaluable because, yeah, the enemy could just walk through or go around the barrier. In fact, here's an example of how good it is. Keep in mind, Diva's self-destruct ultimate does 1200 damage in the first range. Oh. Next up is the Ravenous Vortex. Unlike the Void Barrier and block abilities being exclusive to the Omnic form and Nemesis form respectively, Ravenous Vortex can be used in both forms, though if you ask me, it feels more powerful to use in Nemesis form. To clarify though, there's no difference in power between both forms, I just gaslight myself into thinking that's the case whenever I'm playing Ram. This is a projectile that creates a circular vortex that slows enemies caught inside and does damage over time, but also grounds them should they be in the air when caught in it. That alone suggests a lot of potential for the ability, like getting environmental limbs on anyone near an edge, but I found it's not overly reliable for this. But hey, that's most likely just me. I suck ass at getting environmentals on any hero who can. Finally is the ultimate I mentioned about feeling extremely powerful using, Annihilation. This has a lot of similarities to Nemesis form, instantly transforming round upon use, but with the added effect of this purple aura flowing around you, latching onto enemies nearby in a similar vein to Moira's secondary fire, but with the ability to lock onto multiple targets at once, draining their health over time, accentuated by the pummeling you'll be doing while this is active. The ultimate has a measly as hell duration, but it can be extended by just being close to enemies. For a fun fact on Rematra's initial release, the ultimate was infinite so long as you were around enemies, while now it slowly expires, delaying the end of the ultimate, so it is possible for it to end even mid-fight. It's a powerful as hell ability used in the right situations. With a lot of combos, it's near unstoppable, like with Kiriko's Kitsune Rush, putting more emphasis on the gates of hell near my game field. However, it can be countered easily by either staying behind cover, i.e. shields, because the aura thing is blocked by that, or just moving out of its proximity. Though despite that, given the fact Pummel pisses shields, you can always break through the enemy holding the shield in place to then get to the rest of the team. But if it's a Mei, I guess you're just screwed unless you wait for the ice wall, but let's be honest, you went baiting out because the Mei's there specifically for you. I love playing with Rematra so much, man. I always have a good time because the feel of the hero makes you feel unstoppable, which tanks very much weren't up until a certain point, but nevertheless. Swapping between Omnic form and Nemesis form brings a great flow to the gameplay, making the whole experience feel engaging. A sentiment I think a few people might disagree with, especially when having to fight against a good Rematra, but I enjoy playing him and my opinion matters most here because you're in my domain. Plus, the funny grape juice ultimate goes burr and that's enough for me. Alright, from a hero I really enjoyed upon release and still do to this day, to a hero that, let's not mince words, was absolute dog water on release. Yes, we're talking about Lifeweaver now. The first new hero to be released in 2023 and the then new newest support. He unfortunately released in an incredibly weak state, one that I'm surprised made it to live servers without having to be delayed, but I guess they had to meet the new bi-seasonal deadline and they thought he was ready. Only one can assume, but everyone else thought otherwise. I'm being too harsh. Weaver's in a much better state these days, even if the initial ball was on the ground, but it's taken a number of changes to get him to this state, enough to where I've joked on multiple occasions to just remove the character and start again with him. Regardless of his initial state though, one thing could have never been denied. He was the definition of gorgeous. Like, is it hot in here or is it just me? This absolute peak specimen of a man aside, for as difficult as it is to ignore his captivating looks, Lifeweaver is another completely brand new character to Overwatch, but he does have ties to one of the other heroes, Symmetra, from the time at Vishkar's Architect Academy. So again, pretty neat new heroes don't just come out of nowhere, usually by adding to previously existing lore. The narrative teams should really be given their flowers more often. But, into the gameplay now, and Lifeweaver possesses a very user-friendly kit, with one ability that is his whole bread and butter, so to speak. Before that though, he has a primary and secondary fire. The former is Healing Blossom, a healing projectile with super generous tracking capabilities that require a bit of charge after each use to get the most out of them. And the latter is Form Volley, a, well, volley of projectiles with slight spread that's stupidly weak per shot, but I'd argue the rate of fire makes up for lack of damage. Generally speaking though, you aren't likely to win most encounters, but Weaver has an ability kit specifically designed to get both him and his teammates out of bad situations. To start, there's the Petal platform. This is a small elevating platform that rises up when stepped on, though it is an instant and lowers when nobody's on it. This isn't actually an ally only thing because it can be used by the enemy as well. Sounds questionable, but it can come with a lot of strategic uses, able to get allies out of a number of ultimates like Zaya's Graviton Surge and Orisa's Terror Surge, for example. Plus, though more of a niche use, it's fun to mess with enemies with, like very briefly stopping the momentum or using it to put Orisa up in the air mid-ult. It's legit the epitome of a troll ability in the right hands, but obviously the same applies to the enemy team as well, where it could aid them instead. It's otherwise infinite unless used, just staying where it's put for someone to use later, so if you have 20/20 in your foresight stat, then go ahead, by all means. Next is the ability solely for helping Weaver himself out of situations, the Rejuvenated Dash, an admittedly pathetically short dash move that can be used only when Weaver's in the air. This includes mid-jump, but does also restore a small amount of health when used. I made it sound bad, but in tandem with the power platform, Weaver has arguably one of the best mobility kits in the game, making him super slippery to deal with half the time, much to the annoyance of the enemy or yourself if you're fighting like Weaver. Like, for a hero that does not fare well in combat, it's frankly ridiculous he has the means of escaping if things go real bad. The same being said for helping his teammates, which applies tenfold to his next ability, Life Grip. This is Life Weaver's bread and butter. You can use it to grab an enemy and pull them towards you, encase them in a protective orb as such that grants them invulnerability while the animation lasts. Use most efficiency at a long range, which the ability does have an amazing one. It can be used to rescue enemies from bad fights, from trapping ultimates like Graviton Surge and a later hero's cage fight, and even save them from pits and stuff, but sometimes the ability just doesn't work right. Yeah, sometimes it can be inconsistent, which sucks extra donkey doo-doo when it's a genuinely invaluable ability a lot of the time. Something I don't think was an intentional way to balance it, but is more the indirect fault of how Overwatch's physics engine works. When it wants to. Having a hero limited by the game's physics engine in some regards is pretty awful, but for some, there's probably a charm to it. Besides the point, however, Life Weaver's final ability is his ultimate, Tree of Life. As the name suggests, it's a tree you can place with the same casting range as Life Grip, and will instantly heal a considerable amount of health as soon as it grows, and then further slightly less amounts per pulse that it does, 8 pulses max happening over its max duration, unless it's destroyed. Weirdly, it has the same amount of health as Reinhardt's barrier shield, 1200, so with that in mind, you can imagine it's also just as easy to tear through. In a lot of situations, however, the tree's staying up for its max duration, as it's too much of a distraction for the enemy team to deal with, and not even that potent. Don't misunderstand me, the Tree of Life is still good. Great for saving your team in a pinch or for providing extra support given Life Weaver's single target healing style, but it's not as much as what Zenyatta's Transcendence ult puts out, where allies are basically invincible around it unless the barrage of incoming damage is way too overwhelming or teammates get hit with anti-heal. It has its weaknesses, granted, but I don't believe long-lasting invulnerability abilities are a healthy thing for this type of game, or just in general. Of course, an argument against brief invulnerability actions can be made too, but stuff like Baptiste's Immortality Field and Kiriko's Protection Suzu also have their drawbacks, either being cooldown timed or projectile based, forcing you to actually try with them. I know some people might still disagree with that, but this is my domain, remember? Shoosh! And you know, the Tree of Life reminds me of something. I feel like I mentioned it before, but I can't quite remember what it was. Now, from a hero who initially released super weak to a dominant force that would force the devs to start doing limited time playtests for heroes before their actual release, because this one was too strong, Illari. Alright, well, in all fairness, it was probably the back-to-back release of heroes that were radically different in terms of balance and not just Illari's doing, but shut up, saying it was gives her release more aura, so I'm sticking with it. Illari is actually the first hero to be entirely new when it comes to lore. Nothing was added for already existing bits of lore, instead Illari is from scratch, her origins being super depressing. Gist of it is, she's a Vestler's son. As a part of the Inti Warriors, they held a ritual as per tradition for her when she was ready, but in the process, she turned out to have way more power than was anticipated, and wiped out her entire lineage of people in the process, in an accident that can only be described as catastrophic. Yeah, quite a kick in the nuts, wouldn't you say? I mean, we've had depressing stuff in the past, but this? Yikes, you can't help but feel bad for her. I'm glad it gives you a reason to care about her at least, but damn. For a little while, I thought her origin story was a bit on the edgy side, you know, the I'm so powerful but no one truly knows the extent of my power type of thing, but I've since warmed to it over time. Why did she get a skin for the Egyptian god of the moon, Thoth, in season 12 instead of, you know, the Egyptian god of the sun, Ra? That's a whole thing, like, bruh. And hey, if her origin wasn't enough to get across how much of a sleeper threat she was, then her kit sure will. You remember that comment I made about Kiriko being able to throw hands when it comes to it? Yeah, that applies to Illari as well, but 100-fold instead. Alright, I'm glazing her way too much. That sounds really weird. Why do people say that? But here's the thing, right? For some of her kit, it's like the devs were in the middle of making a new damage hero, but suddenly got word to make her another support. Like, it is not subtle in the slightest. She wields the solar rifle, which I swear to God should function as a proper melee weapon as well, given how much it resembles a sword. Hell, she even swings it like one in her basic melee animation, so like, come on, just go through with it, it'd be so cool. Think about it for a second. A weapon that functions in both long-range scenarios and close combat, with different means of attacking sounds pretty cool. I guess maybe she'd be too similar to a Macho then with the dual playstyles, but I think an idea can be reused so long as it's not the exact same thing again. I suppose at that point, she really would just be another damage hero. The constant thinking that Illari is going to get moved over to the damage roller side, which wouldn't be the first time a support's been switched to damage, the first and only time so far being with Symmetra in 2017, but Where was I again? Oh right, to get back on topic, the solo rifle possesses a primary and secondary fire. The primary fire is a powerful shot that auto-charges and takes about a second to reach its max power, and has an overly generous fall-off range for its damage output, only held back by the hole waiting for it to charge thing for the max damage. Hell, it's why I alternate between the primary fire and melee up close, because not only is it really fun to do, but I find the damage output to be a little more consistent than having to wait for the rifle to fully charge. Like, with this alone, Illari can easily go hand to hand with any damage roll hero. It's a little ridiculous, but hey, it's at least somewhat on par with her secondary fire, a beam of healing that you hold over your allies, not too dissimilar to Zai's primary fire in its basic function, doing a solid amount of healing per second, but it's not infinite. Like the primary fire, it needs to recharge after burning through it, that being the secondary fire's reload, if you will. Illari even has some form of mobility and outburst. This launches you in the direction you're moving, as well as giving you some airtime, making reaching higher ground a little easier, but sometimes you may need an extra step up to make it. Not only that, but it will push back enemies near you, so if you're somehow not running down the entire enemy's team with your primary fire, you can just get out of there. Next is her healing pylon, a turret-like thing that heals the closest ally to it or the ally with the lowest health, so it has a priority system in other words. It's definitely an ability. Okay, it's got a degree of convenience to it as you can move it around, but only after its initial cooldown has expired, but even then, you can't move it if it's been damaged, either delaying the repositioning thing or doubling its cooldown if it's destroyed. It has its uses, granted, and strategically moving around is fun, especially on flashpoint maps where you're frequently moving, though I guess it's more inconvenient that way, so for the sake of getting the most use out of it, it's most ideal for when playing defense and hybrid maps. You had enough of those abilities? Well, you haven't seen anything yet, because here comes the unmatched power of the sun, bitch! And the joke just then is no joke. Illari's ultimate, Captain Sun, is a stupidly powerful ultimate. Illari will become able to fly around, and after even the timer expires or by your own volition, she'll shoot a small sun at the enemy, which will stick to them for a few seconds before fading away, unless they then take enough damage to trigger the sun exploding for massive damage. That's a lot of damage! Not only that, but it can affect multiple targets, with just one of the explosions being enough to trigger the rest, if they're close enough to the initial explosion. Illari is a support hero, by the way, I hope you didn't forget that. This ultimate is insane. Combined with trapping ults like Graviton Surge, it's more than likely going to be a team wipe. There's not much else I can say about Captain Sun, other than it's a ridiculous ultimate that really contributes to my stated theory of Illari originally being a damage hero in concept. On a less intense note, she has a pet llama named Chunyu. Important information. For the final hero released in 2023, we have yet another controversial one, a tank hero, Mauna. Mauna happens to be another hero we've seen previously in the lore, notable through Baptiste's origin story from when he was a part of the Talon for a short period. See? There he is! As you can imagine, finally getting to see him as a playable character revealed at BlizzCon 2023 was really exciting. I'm not sure how many other heroes they could pull from previously existing lore, but if Mauna's the last one for that, it's not a bad way to end that method of hero creation. If we're solely talking the actual character anyway. On that, what an absolute mountain of a man we have here. His origin story and subsequent animated short are great pieces that really highlight the infinite wealth of charisma that he possesses. And you can see the devs know what's up with Mauna in a number of his sprays, and yeah, without a doubt, you bet I would. Still, we need to address the controversy that comes with Mauna, and that's his kit. For the very briefest summary before getting into it, it is Monkey Brain the kit. What the hell do I mean by that? Well, if you have even a modicum of patience, I'll get to that. So to start, Mauna has his own passive, Berserker. This will grant overhealth when you deal critical damage, so headshot damage. That comes with an asterisk though, because you can trigger the passive by first igniting the target with the primary fire, the incendiary chain gun, and then shooting the burning targets with secondary fire, the volatile chain gun, or for the sake of convenience going forward, Cha-Cha and Gunny respectively. Cha-Cha setting enemies alike does take a few bullets, and you can still deal critical damage normally with headshots, but on smaller targets like supports or whatever, it's just easier to set them ablaze first and then get the critical damage with Gunny, therefore triggering the Berserker passive easier. You're probably thinking, wow, that's kind of insane, and yeah, it is. But both guns share an ammo count. This is wonderful because God help us if they had 300 ammo each. I guess the alternative could have been 150 ammo for each one, but maybe that would have been a little difficult to manage, having to reload weapons individually and all that, and how UI design is beyond difficult. Besides the two individual bastions Mauna is carrying on his arms, he has 3 abilities, including his ultimate, the first of which being Overrun, a movement based ability where Mauna will just barrel forward at breakneck speeds, ending with a little hop at the end into a stomp that will briefly knock enemies to the floor. Plus, while Overrun is active, he'll also take reduced damage, so really, it's a better version of Reinhardt's charge. Sure, it doesn't one-hit anybody caught in the path, but running through enemies with damage reduction and invulnerability to other stun abilities, besides another Mana Overrun, along with a stun at the end that does considerable damage, yeah, it's clear which one is better. The next ability turns Mana into a self-sustaining tank like Junker Queen, Cardiac Overdrive. This guy is a self-sustaining tank. As if his character design alone didn't scream unstoppable force of nature, this just enforces it. Cardiac Overdrive heals Mana for 100% of the damage dealt when active, while healing nearby allies for half the amount of damage they do. On top of that, Mana also receives a 40% nerf to damage taken, and allies receive a 20% nerf to damage taken. So despite his seemingly solo playstyle relies on frontlining to get the most out of him, he can greatly benefit the team too. As for the ultimate, that's Cage Fight. Enacting the Hell in a Cell stipulation, Cage Fight puts a tall circular cage-like barrier around a decent radius that traps all enemies caught inside of it with you, locking the ability to use movement-based abilities while you're all inside. Despite that though, your allies can freely go in and out, all of their movement abilities intact should they have any. The cage isn't wholly impenetrable though, because it can be broken with enough damage, and there are a few abilities that can be used to pass through it, like Larissa who fortified on the outside of the cage, or another Mauna using Overrun from the outside. And, surprise surprise, some Brazilian P also just deletes the cage. Everything I've said all sounds fine and good, but Mauna in terms of gameplay is very, I don't want to say boring, but more, maybe boring would be the right word. See, playing Mauna is the epitome of monkey braining. Gunny and Cha-Cha go Burr and Overrun goes through. I'm not kidding when I say that, that's the best way to describe what it's like playing him. But at the same time, I am having fun, even if a more engaging playstyle would be preferred. Holy hell, coming up against another Mauna is always a treat. It's whatever though, I guess, because it doesn't hurt to sometimes have a hero where you don't have to think much. An absolute godsend for the tank role, considering how much you usually have to deal with, both with your own team and the enemy team. Plus, I won't lie, playing Mauna is an absolute power trip for me most of the time, contributing more to the whole monkey brain thing. Granted, going full monkey brain on Mauna leads to intense disassociation most of the time, which is bad in the long run. So, how about we move on to the next hero who's got a way more engaging playstyle, Venture. Venture time! Come on, grab your friends, we'll go to very distant lands. With Luna the support and Nova the tank, the fun will never end. It's Venture time. Don't mind that always comes to mind when I play Venture. It lives rent through my head, so I had to subject you to it too. But that's not important, because what is important is the new rock-eating gremlin of a hero we have for the damage roll. The first time we've had a new damage hero since Sojourn, a fact I've mentioned plenty of times up until this point. My tendency to repeat things aside though, Venture has to be one of my favourite new additions to the cast. They're an eccentric personality who, like Mauna, has wowers of charisma and a strong passion for all things historical, being an archaeologist who specialises in Omnic archaeology. A very interesting premise because, given how recent the development and evolution, if you will, of Omnics is in the world of Overwatch, that specific branch of archaeology seems like it would be relevant for at least a couple of centuries, but Omnic's origins go deeper than that seemingly, so it's cool to get a deeper look into an aspect that is very much the core of Overwatch's story. Besides their fun and joyful personality that makes them extremely easy to love, Venture is Overwatch's first non-binary hero, meaning they don't exclusively identify as either male or female, hence why I've been using gender-neutral pronouns up to this point. This is really nice because it brings more representation to Overwatch, a game that is all about representation at its core with its approach to both character design and gameplay, focusing on characters of different backgrounds, nationalities and all walks of life. As nice as this is, Venture just existing has unfortunately brought out a lot of the worst kinds of people, transphobes and the likes, either deliberately misgendering them either way or by making other vile comments that are also at the expense of real life non-binary folks because they believe it's just a fictional character, who cares? Which is a sentiment I wholeheartedly disagree with. Because yes, I do believe in trans rights, and advocate for basic rights for minority groups in general, something I believe everyone should be advocating for because not everyone is treated equally. And by the way, just because the character is fictional doesn't excuse the damage you're still doing by insulting them for whatever head-ass reason, because you're doing damage to those who relate to and feel represented by the character. Though I have a feeling you're probably aware of that. Honestly, just admit you're a bad person and leave, it'll save us both the trouble. And I will come forward and say, I've misgendered Venture a few times since their release, but I assure you, it's by complete accident. By no means intentional, because I genuinely respect and admire those who come to terms with what they want in life and follow through with it. Even if to some people, pronouns are entirely inconceivable and have to make your lives a living hell because you're happy with who you are. Ideally speaking, I shouldn't even give a modicum of time to people who missed the lesson in school where they were taught to respect others, but it needed to be mentioned because it's a cloud that unfortunately hangs around Venture, and probably always will because some people are awful. Which I feel might be one reason as to why Venture's got no skins since their release in Season 10. Yeah, I haven't really mentioned it yet with the other heroes, but generally speaking, a new one will get a few skins available from the start, including a couple legendary rarity ones, but Venture got nothing. To be fair, this was kind of the case with Mauna, Iliari and Life Reaver, but they still got a skin in their debut season's battle pass, and sometimes still get stuff in the shop. Venture though, we're still waiting. The only non-rare blue variety skin we've gotten for them so far has been the ice cream skin, but it's only available to buy in the shop and it's epic rarity at that. We have been told Venture's getting something in season 14 in December, which whenever you're watching it might be out already, so I hope it's at least worth the wait, but 8 months for a single legendary rarity skin is pretty pathetic. Doesn't have the ice cream skin is complete ass armor. We did also get the Monarch skin through Twitch drops during 2024's Pride Month, which is admittedly a nice skin because it's the same colours as a non-binary flag, and might also be referencing this meme with its name, but even still, it's just a rare skin. It feels worse when, even though the next hero, Juno, didn't get anything upon release either, which I guess is the norm going forward, or they'll just wait to sell them late in the shop, but even in the skin surveys that go out to certain people to gauge feedback on potential future skins, Juno already appears in a few of these, while Venture doesn't. Juno got legendary skin before Venture, Juno got legendary skins before Venture, Juno got legendary skin before Venture, Juno got legendary. Why didn't Ramacho get the All Might skin? His Omnic form could have been Squirrel Might and the Nemesis form could have been Big Boy Might. Maybe it's because the design team knows a good skin for Venture will incite the wrath of the less intelligent and bring harassment to those who don't deserve it. Or higher up to cowards too, and that was the trade-off for having a non-binary folk would be represented. Or maybe it's because Venture is considered by many to not be conventionally attractive, to be worth designing skins for because they won't sell well, unlike the infinite wile of funds they have for designing new skins for the likes of Kiriko, Mercy and Diva. I love all three of those heroes, but the favoritism is blatantly obvious sometimes, especially when Kiriko can get a mythic level skin in a season that should be centered around a new hero, but I need to get back on track. Short to the point, the design team, probably because of word from higher ups, only seem to want to design skins for the heroes they know will sell well. By the way, to those who do say Venture's ugly or whatever, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, I get that, but are you blind? A rugged explorer with an eccentrically quirky personality and a strong passion for history with a chip smile because their little gremlin ass has been into a rock at least once, which is super charming in its own little weird way. And not to mention, it's strong as f*** because the smart excavator apparently weighs a couple tons. That's ugly to you? You do you, I guess, but some of you can only think one-dimensionally. I get it, sure, you gotta keep the lights on because Overwatch 2 is free to play and all that, but good lord man, every hero deserves at least something on release. I don't care if they're new, so they'll need to gauge fan response first. I thought that's what the playtests were partially for. Admittedly, there's a very likely reason for this, something that happened earlier on into 2024, but I'm not going to touch on that just yet. Honestly though, part of me feels like pointing to that reason is copium, and everything surrounding Venture, i.e. nothing, was a deliberate move. As is the case though, it is what it is, but despite the lack of love, that will never make me hate you, Venture Overwatch.
You so fucking precious when you smile.
Man, this Venture section is going a while, huh? It's almost like I'm insanely passionate about the hero, more so than I have been for any other one beforehand. Yeah, I'm about as subtle as a large border the size of a small border. Ah well, I think it's about time we actually got into their kit, huh? And if you thought I loved Venture solely for their personality, I also love them for their fun as hell kit. To start, Venture has 2 passives. Gee, Venture, how come Team 4 lets you have 2 passives? The first one is Clobber. This simply gives Venture a slightly more powerful basic melee attack. And the second is Explorer's Resolve, where using any of their abilities excluding the ultimate will grant temporary shields, the blue health bars. Both abilities can stack the shields gained, but they are capped slightly below what will be the maximum. You can imagine with a passive like that, you can get away with a lot by simply using one of your melee abilities to grant a temporary health buff, massively helping you if you're in trouble. As for their main way of dealing damage, their primary way, if you will, The Smart Excavator only has a primary fire and launches these bursts of energies that explode after a short distance. And when I say a short distance, I mean that. Venture's range with this weapon is measly. Not atrocious or anything, you've got more range than Reaper's shotguns for example, but they are shots ideally used close up, especially so given the projectiles will also explode upon hitting an enemy. And you know, saying Venture should fight up close is redundant because their entire kit is very close combat orientated, being a sort of melee based kit focused on combos in order to get the most out of all of it. A melee based damage hero with a heavy focus on combos? Now where have I seen that before? Nah, I can't put my finger on it. To get into what exactly makes Venture a melee combo orientated hero, first, Drill Dash. This drill dash, god I'm running out of steam, sends Venture flying forward at considerable speed in the direction you're facing, pushing back any enemy caught in it while doing considerable damage as well, both through the first point of contact and in the following hits during its animation. This is a fantastic ability for general mobility and its knockback capabilities, being super fun to get environmental leanings with, Venture being the only hero that I'm able to do that with on a consistent enough basis, funny enough, and combines well with the basic melee, making for a gratifying combo to pull off, best starting with a drill dash and then the basic melee. At least that's what I prefer anyway. The second ability is Burrow. This allows Venture to dig underground where they are completely invulnerable while it lasts, and then either unburrow at will or wait until its max duration. There's a little charge meter that appears as you're unburrowing, which you can charge up by holding whatever input you use to increase the amount of damage you'll do upon unburrowing, and therefore delay when you come back to the surface. Given you're invulnerable down here, it's very much get an LJ03 card, which I have complained about prior, but its iframes aren't immediate, so Venture can still be killed during the initial burrowing animation. And very easily mind you, because this happens to be a lot. Not to mention your movement speed is also increased slightly, and you can use the drill dash while down there, though it is exponentially weaker, but there is a use. When burrowed, your drill dash cooldown will be much faster, meaning you could use it once, burrow, use it again while burrowed, though not immediately, unburrow, but wait for the full charge, then maybe wait another second to use it again? Crazy, right? Obviously, it's not an infinite loop. The cooldowns are just enough to prevent this, but for the way it all is, it's extremely effective for getting the job done. May I suggest drill dash, bow, unbow while waiting for the max charge, drill dash, and then a basic melee? Or hell, throw in one use of the primary fire before the melee. I don't know, sky's the limit with how fun it can be to pull off, right? Normally, 2 shots, a drill dash and then a basic melee will be enough to finish a 1v1 where Venture typically thrives, but everything they have to work with can fare well enough against multiple targets. Unbowing being able to hit multiple targets and the primary fire and drill dash having the capability too. But what if you wanted something a little more AoE based? Well, that's where Venture's ultimate, Tectonic Shock, comes in. Shock is super fun to use. Yet another ultimate I feel powerful using, but I didn't allude to earlier, whoops, although I struggle to get the most out of it sometimes. Shock fires out a total of 4 immense shockwaves that deal massive damage and bump enemies into the air slightly, but it is limited to the ground, so it can't be used in the air, though trying to will bring Venture to the ground faster. Given its inability to be used in the air, as well as the fact it needs to be on a stable surface of flat ground, while it can travel along ramps and stairs so it doesn't need to be completely flat, positioning is super important when using it because it can also be blocked by enemy shields and random map objects as well, so it's best used in corridor settings. Despite its limitations, it's a really fun one to use. In fact, it's because of those why I enjoy using it so much, making a successful use of it feel all the more satisfying. After all, what would an ultimate be if it was literally an instant win button? An unbalanced and boring one, that's what. Oh, unless you're Surgeon, in which case I guess it's perfectly okay. Ultimates are meant to be powerful, often fight-ending, but none should be unstoppable. There needs to be a degree of weakness to it. Alright, I don't want to get into balance play, that's not my forte in the slightest, so to get back to it, Venture was definitely worth the wait for a new damage hero. No matter how you want to look at the time between Surgeon and Venture, at least when you finally got them, they were an incredibly satisfying one with a fun core design. Combos. And they're just a wonderful little rock-eating gremlin, so that alone was enough to make the wait worth it. And finally, yes, finally, we're now into the latest hero released for Overwatch 2, Juno, a support hero. Juno is the first otherworldly hero, hailing from Mars of all places. I can't imagine what growing up on Mars would be like, but with what ends up happening in her origin story, I can imagine it's a good time. Either way though, she came to Earth because she was sent here to escape the destruction caused by incomprehensible storms on Mars that were bound to wipe out all life, as a way to find out that I think it's a task that will end up depressingly pointless, but even so, Juno's still determined, even though she's a little unsure of herself at times. Understandable given the stakes, you'd be worrying yourself sick suddenly given the task of saving an entire civilization, especially your own. The alternate, more ideal outcome of Iliari's story, I'm so sorry. And yeah, that's the gist of Juno's story, something we got a little further look into with her animated short, the first hero-centric one since Mauners. Wow, the Venture situation feels extra personal, huh? Yeah, sure, Iliari Life Within Remastered didn't get one, and Surgeon had to wait close to a year for an animated short. And these ones from Mauna and Juno, while in a different style to the traditional cinematic, are still really good in their presentation. But to suddenly pick it up again with Mauna to then only do it again 2 years later, it feels a bit targeted. Look, I know Venture got a little origin story and a voiceover reading by the VA of the hero of the comic that was released alongside them, but in terms of overall presentation, it's different. Sorry, I gotta let it go for now. I don't want to overshadow Juno because she's a great hero too. A back-to-back victory for new exciting heroes that feel great in their execution and have depth beyond a puddle, honestly. Sorry Mauna, but your gameplay depth isn't as deep as your charisma. And how about that depth for Juno? Well, as for a brief summary, she's an amazingly fun movement-based ability hero who, while a little lacking in basic support, healing, makes up for it for what she can provide via the rest of her kit. I genuinely feel bad. I would have to decide to stop making the hero guys just as one of the newest and one of the most fun new heroes gets released, huh? Oh well, it is what it is. Oh, lovely as fuck. So good. Juno has her own passive, Martian Overboots. These are essentially a combination of the double jump passive heroes like Genji and Hanzo have. So I'm an idiot. Hanzo can't double jump with a passive, that's lunge. Imagine being so uncool compared to your cyborg ninja brother, you need a cooldown. And hovering passive heroes like Mercy and Echo have, which allows for her to descend slower, providing for some nice self-explanatory maneuverability, and just feels magical, I guess, to use. Should be noted that the ability to hover doesn't require the double jump being used first, and vice versa. Freedom of choice, baby, let's go! Juno wields the Medi Blaster, a weapon that functions similar to Anna's bionic rifle, where you can damage enemies and heal allies without needing a form of secondary fire, unlike Iliari's solo rifle. A key thing to pay attention to, the blaster has its own little UI, where a smiley face will show up when pointing the weapon at allies, and an angry face will show when pointing it at enemies. It's so cute and a really nice attention to detail, a great little addition regarding accessibility. I won't mince words with this one, it feels really weak. Why? Well, it fires shots in bursts, and a single burst does measly healing, but her average healing per second is better than many other primary forms of healing, like Anna's bionic rifle and even Life River's healing blossom, but it doesn't feel like that because of how burst type weapons are in nature. I think if anything, unless they want to change the type of weapon the Medi Blaster is, something about landing shots needs to be changed because I don't think it yields the kind of feedback you'd expect for a weapon you actually need to aim with, like Anna's bionic rifle, which is the best example because hitting shots yields the appropriately satisfying feedback on both enemies and allies, even with the inability to deal critical damage, something the Medi Blaster also can't do. Honestly, that applies to dealing damage as well. I'm not a game designer, so I'm sure there's something I'm missing, but the shots feeling weak ends up making the whole experience feel lesser, even if the outcome is a lot better than most, which is an insane contrast because the rest of her kit feels great to use. To start, her pulsar torpedoes are targeting missiles that work the same as her Medi Blaster, able to heal allies and damage enemies, with the added bonus of being able to lock onto both allies and enemies at the same time, and do both at once. Seriously, there's no cap to how many people you can target on both sides, meaning you could hit everybody in the game, but that's just not going to happen. Even though the orbs you fire have an element of tracking to them, literally the biggest counter to them is a wall, or a demon defense matrix, that too. Their damage and healing is pretty decent, though in the case of the healing, given how the lock-on isn't immediate, using it in tight situations can be a risky move, but since it can lock onto anyone, the trade-off is fair enough, I suppose. Plus, it has amazing range, so, you know. Following the magical orbs of life and death, wait, that's Zenyatta's thing, it's the glide boost. This one's pretty basic, allowing Juno to hover about horizontally while moving a little faster. Combined with a double jump or just on its own, it can be used to push up against some surfaces to give you extra height. But when I say this is really weird to explain and experience, I mean that. Obviously you can push up against slanted surfaces, e.g. ones you normally slide off, but you can get away with it more often than you'd expect. I don't know, like I said, it's hard to explain and feels clunky in execution, but I suppose it allows for some parkour and extra indirect mobility, so I guess I'll put up with it for now. You could also use her third ability to further help with the general mobility, the Hyper Ring. Looking like something out of a racing game, the basis the design team actually used when making the ability interesting enough. Going through it will give you a temporary speed boost, though actually you just need to be within a general vicinity of the thing to get the speed boost. I get that's for easy use, as needing to pass through the ring would also make it seem clunky, but flying through rings is something everyone should experience. And yeah, it can be used on the ground or in the air, but so that the majority of other heroes can get use out of it, it's best used on the ground. It's really good giving teammates or yourself a speed boost in battle or to escape it if need be. And in tandem with the Martian Overboots and Glide Boost, these three cycles makes Juno an incredibly difficult hero to deal with for the enemy. And finally for her kit, she has an Orbital Strike, I mean, Orbital Ray, yeah. But in all seriousness, it might as well be in a very roundabout way.
You wouldn't dare.
because it summons a beam of light down from the heavens that travels in a straight line that heals and boosts the damage of allies within its radius. And the amount of healing and damage boost percentage it gives is the equivalent of an extremely overtuned Mercy in the most basic of terms. This is an insane support ultimate, probably, no, by far the best one we've had yet, and that's saying a lot with the likes of Kiriku's Casino Rush and Zenyatta's Transcendence. Which I guess might be the reason for the burst healing being measly on June's Mini Blaster, but Harini per second is damn good. Forget about it. I guess it's also Iliari's ultimate too, but that's more of a DPS one if we're being real. Genuinely though, right, Juno is such a fun hero to play. Sure, she may be lacking the vertical movement department, which can feel a bit limiting, but there are ways around it, like double jumping, the whole pushing up against things thing. And despite me saying it's clunky, you can look at it as more of a movement tech kind of thing, taking advantage of Overwatch is fun if sometimes inconsistent physics engine. Heroes that have movement based ability kits are always a joy to play, it's great we finally have another one on the roster. And one I'm sure will be downright nasty to deal with in the right hands, like a Frogger or an Eske or a DSP Stanky. And with that, we're done with the new heroes. New heroes are always one of the most fun parts about Overwatch, and what I think is the biggest reason for the game's player retention. After all, new is good, right? Despite a few moments, it's been fun so far, right? Well, although I don't want to rain on the parade we got going here, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to start a downpour. Way at the beginning of the video, which feels like years ago at this point, I said how talking about Overwatch 2 in general always has a sort of cloud hanging around the subject, and no matter how you feel about the game's balance, microtransactions and whatever, the main reason for Overwatch 2's existence is something that leaves a sour taste in many people's mouths and is low hanging fruit for those who are just anti-Overwatch, the story missions. I don't think I'm going to enjoy talking about these, but they are an important part of Overwatch 2, for better or worse. Overwatch has always been about its story. Obviously, prior to Overwatch 2, the game's story was told through lore bits, like the bigger animated cinematics or origin stories, or the smaller parts, like interactions between heroes mid-game. And given how diverse the cast of characters were and still are, being the epitome of attention grabbing, it felt really weird to not have a dedicated story mode. Of course, we had stuff like the Archives events, giving us some much needed context in a lot of areas for the events that led up to the Overwatch's primary narrative, the fall of Overwatch, and the subsequent uprising of Null Sector, leading to a new Overwatch being formed. That's an extremely brief summary of Overwatch's narrative. There's more to it, obviously, like in-world politics and events like the Rialto incident involving Blackwatch, but in the grander scheme of things, we never had anything as in-depth as a dedicated story mode. It was always just through consistently well-written but infrequent lore drops. So, as you can imagine, when Overwatch 2 was announced and its sole existence, besides Blizz higher-ups wanting more money, was for the sake of finally giving us a story mode, people lost their shit, and rightly so. After all that time, 3 years since Overwatch burst onto the scenes by that point, which ended up being 6 years by the time Overwatch 2 finally released, we are finally going to get a proper go at one of the things that made Overwatch so interesting and brought in a lot of people. However, as we know by this point, history wasn't as kind as it was supposed to be. I say that like the story was cancelled and completely wiped off the face of the earth entirely, but that's not the case, though in hindsight, that might as well have been. I'm beating around the bush here and trying to be all cool and elusive in my writing, so to just get straight to the point, while we eventually got story content in Season 6 Invasion 10 months after Overwatch 2's release, any future content was later cancelled because apparently they didn't do well financially or critically. The latter more than likely being a scapegoat for the former being the true and only reason. Something we first heard about being rumours later in the year and then otherwise confirmed at the beginning of 2024, following mass layers after Microsoft's 5G chess move of requiring Activision Blizzard for a stupid amount that, for some reason, is a perfect excuse to lose people their jobs. The same people who make the games that have helped contribute to your empire. Masterful gambit, sir. For what I'm about to talk about next, I'm using Kotaku as a source, so take it with a pinch of salt. Their track record on how they're often perceived is wonky at best, so bear with me. But according to a former developer of Overwatch 2, the original plan was to have new story missions every subsequent 18 months after the first lot, and although they were cancelled by the 5-head execs, immediate future missions were at least in some form of completion, so what the hell. Furthermore, as per the frequent head-ass decisions made by the execs, because of a certain thing that I think might make a few people squirm, because I'm confident it exists in their other series, the Blizzard level of quality. A term that means jack all to many, I assume, being more of a crutch these days, really limiting devs in, actually developing the damn product to get to those standards. But in the words of the former dev, Blizzard quality is a justification to essentially piss about forever and ever, redoing the same work over and over. Like, wow. If that wasn't a good enough summary of the state of Blizzard's hell, the entire gaming industry as a whole nowadays, overworking their staff in demand of an unreachable quality in the time frame they're given, making it worse by shortening their development window and not wanting to delay the project, then I don't know what it is. It's f***ing ridiculous, honestly. I will be honest, I don't know what the hell the execs mean by executive equality. No, actually, I do. They mean they want the product, no matter what it is, gameplay, content or otherwise, to make $1 bajillion the microsecond it goes out. Obviously, this is how they felt slighted by the story content, because if we're to talk about their actual quality, I think they're great, truly. It might just be the fact we finally got them after so long, so there's a sense of finality there, as well as a sense of hope for the future. And yet, they're kind of what you'd expect from a PvE mode that puts you through different scenarios as you progress through that mission's centralized story. But I think they had a lot more potential than what they were able to reach. Something that is not a fault of the missions or the devs, but more because of the future content being cancelled. Not allowing the devs to capitalize on the goodwill gained from them now being a thing, and having the chance to further improve on a really solid base, and making the content we did get feel hollow as a result. It's sad, really, because the 3 missions we got follow up from the 0-hour animated short, recruiting Lucia as a part of the new Overwatch, trying to recruit Sojourn, who is a part of the old guard, a story that lives rent-free in the mind of story enthusiasts, as it's the basis for everything that would follow. Ground Zero, if you will, as she highlights that Overwatch is nowhere near the size that it used to be, a real problem for trying to fight off the dominant null sector, and then seeing the new members recruited by Cassidy in this new Blood comic storyline, or even seeing how Torbjorn believes it's time for the new guard to take over as the old guard wouldn't be able to cut it, getting across how there's still hope. An ironic statement given the state of things, because it all feels hopeless sometimes. I mentioned the layoffs at the start of the year, and yeah, that was truly awful, and wholly unnecessary. Like, it's not their fault a $1 billion corporation can't handle their money right, and ended up just being another kicking in the proverbial shin of the Overwatch development team, Team 4. Every time they are able to get the ball rolling, just when things seem to be looking up, it's all back to zero again, or at the very least drastically hindered through no fault of their own. It all feels like a losing battle in the end, for both the devs and the players, and yet more fuel for those who wish to push their anti-Overwatch agenda in the face of any fan the second they get the chance, or just say it randomly because hating on Overwatch gets you brownie points. Especially in this day and age where the active Blizz execs seem to have stocks in the opinions of these people. Whether it be new heroes no longer getting even a crumb of love with legendary skins upon release, and then having the team design an infinite number of skins for the shop for the same heroes, because God forbid we take a risk with our bottomless pockets. But really, the unfortunate reality is, that's for the best, because if something doesn't sell well or enough risks are taken, they'll probably just lay off more people, resetting any kind of progress or guild where the team wholeheartedly builds up again. Or just the general inability to have the devs do their thing, unless it's a safe option, the epitome of stagnancy. Oh hell, the whole Overwatch League situation is another can of worms entirely, with the League tokens no longer being sold after December 2024, inevitably making the Overwatch League skins stupid rare, unless they maybe want to sell them for Overwatch coins in the future, which are just worth less than League tokens. So many aspects of this game feel cursed. I want this team to succeed. I want this game to be the best it possibly can be. But with history as a reference, it all just feels so hopeless sometimes. You know there's no need for this, right? Have you ever been told to never give up hope? I have. Often. Then, why don't you heed that advice? Because every time I have hope for this game, stuff happens that instantly destroys that hope. Destroys? I don't know about that. I think you're more resilient than that. I think, no matter what, you never actually give up hope. Deep down, you're actually stubbornly optimistic. I don't think giving up has ever been a real concept to you. I hesitate to call Overwatch 2 my favourite game of all time. There are a few too many key issues with it that prevent me from doing so. Not just in a critical sense, but a personal one too. I don't like the new Overwatch coins currency. I also don't like the new Mythic Prisms. I absolutely hate how we're most likely never getting anything story related again, in terms of the actual modes. I hate how playing Overwatch sometimes feels mentally draining or downright frustrating, especially when you run into the toxic folk, but none of that stopped me from playing it. And not just from time to time, but extremely regularly, even 8 years later. Some people have become dishevelled over the years, and you know, that's fine. Overwatch has had a lot happen to it on multiple fronts over the years, such as the obvious switch from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 bringing about a whole cavalcade of issues for some, including myself, to lack of story for certain characters or the quality of which for some, to them not capitalising on what made Overwatch so interesting to begin with, or to stuff as mundane yet as important as game balance. For me though, I'm still here. Why? Well, despite everything, it's still the game I fell in love with. Maybe slightly different team format wise, but for the core of what Overwatch was, it still is that to me. Call me offensive though, you can say I'm coping, you can even say I've succumbed to the Stockholm Syndrome of Overwatch. Hell, you can even blame it on the sunk cost fallacy phenomenon, having sunk close to 2,000 hours into the game. A number that I'm sure is small compared to others, but a number I couldn't fathom sinking into the end of the game, no matter how hard I tried. Why would I, if I didn't enjoy it and don't still? And you wanna know why? Because in no other game can you get the silly interactions I experienced in Overwatch. No other game could provide me with the same amount of joy and satisfaction I get from landing a sick play or getting a great use out of an ornament. Overwatch is not an easy game to pick up. There's so much to consider and there's so much to keep in mind at all times. Beyond the expected FPS game know-how and skill. Everything clicks just right, and it's beautiful. Learning new heroes is always so fun, and the slow progress of improving over time yields an amazing satisfying feedback loop. Not to mention how it feels to lock in by picking heroes you're good with, truly feeling like a Rock Lee removing his leg weights moment, and with how the game functions at its core, there's always something different happening, keeping the entire experience fresh every time you play. That's why how easy it is to pick up the game for a few rounds and then go about your day, or play for hours on end. And I just adore the amount of fan content I continue to see. Fan art, animations and all, keeping me invested in the game even when I'm not playing it. All of it from people who are either new to Overwatch thanks to Overwatch 2, or from Overwatch 1, the new and old guard if you will. You are all so incredibly talented. So don't let others tell you otherwise or dismiss your work for being Overwatch related. You are awesome. I would not trade the moments of experience with friends for anything in the world. Whether it be queuing competitiveness, whether it be queuing competitive sessions where we're not going to make any progress whatsoever, or just the stupid as fuck moments we have where we say some dumb shit, or some wild interaction between heroes as us question reality, or just a general feeling of playing alongside somebody. Games are always better together, and it feels extra the case in Overwatch because of the type of game it is. The overwhelming majority of friends I have nowadays, I met through Overwatch, and I don't know where I'd be without those people. Scratch that. I do know. I wouldn't be here, and I don't just mean here on YouTube. I mean here on this earth. I've had severe mental down periods in my life, and if it wasn't for them just being in my life at the bare minimum, I'm otherwise confident that I wouldn't be alive. I sometimes joke about Overwatch makes me want to kill myself, but ironically, without it, I think I would have been dead years ago. I don't talk to all of the friends I've made through the years as much as I used to, or as much as I would like to these days. Everyone's got their own lives and responsibilities now, and I really do miss talking to so many of them, but for those who have been there and put up with me at some point, and especially to those who continue to put up with me, thank you. I'm so happy Overwatch allowed me to meet you. In 2016, I, like many others, fell in love with this unique little hero shooter that burst onto the scenes, and while the original game does not exist anymore, Overwatch 2 does, and is kind of more the same, but I wouldn't have it any other way. In spite of it all, it's still Overwatch. I'm often outspoken amongst friends when it comes to issues in this game, but that's because I want this game to be as good as it possibly can be. Why wouldn't I? It's a game I continue to play and enjoy to this day, almost a decade later after first playing it, and has been a huge part of my life in that time. It can be frustrating at times, whether that be because of things happening in game or stuff behind the scenes, but for as hopeless as things can seem, and for as much as we may yearn for the first year of Overwatch, we can't go back. It will never be like how it was, but I ask, why yearn for the past when we can look to the future and hope for better? Which is what Overwatch is all about to me. Things may get bad at times, downright awful in a lot of cases, but hope is a concept that will never cease to exist. And for as shallow as it may seem, hope can carry people a long way. A hope for change, a hope for something to stay the same. Things will never be hopeless, because there's one We could be heroes for what we want. After all, the world could always use more heroes.